Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Peter Kenny. Please share. I'm behind by half an hour. You guys know sometimes things don't go the way we want them to do. Uh, please share the video. I already have the guys are already on the lobby. I'll appreciate it if you guys share. Thank you. Sorry, everyone. I had to do some phone calls that I need to do. Not all the guests. I am waiting for a few guests, but they are already here on the lobby. As soon as I have all of them, I will start the show right away. But please share. Also, if you have a question for them, the best way is sometimes I might not ask the question that you want to ask. The best way if you write down your question and I will pin it down and ask as well. So. Hello, Sister Nai. Nice to hear from you. Um, Arun, thank you. Yes, it has been a long time. Um, Akwaj, uh, thank you. If I'm clear, that's great. Um, but I'm just waiting for one more guest, and I will start right away. Thank you for being patient, guys. Um, thank you, James. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing, and I understand. Yes, it's weekend. We have a lot of uh, things to do. You will come and watch the video as well. Um, Dunmo, thank you. Yes, I have started the show. I'm just waiting for the guests. I want all of them to be here, and I'll start right away. Um, one more phone call, gentlemen, and that would be it. Tu- 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 tu. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I am your host, Peter Kenny, as always, uh, here on Lake State Media platform. Every voice is welcome, and that was the reason we actually come up with Lake State Media. No matter what you will come from in South Sudan, no matter what your political ideology, um, region, or how you felt, South Sudan issues are going to be resolved. You are always welcome here so that we can have a conversation as a community, a society. That way, at the end of the day, we'll have a amicable solution. Uh, to, this afternoon, I have Dr. Biar. We all know who Dr. Biar is. Um, and I have Abraham Awolich, uh, Mr. Rajab, Mohandis. Um, Abraham and Rajab are members of the PCCA, and Dr. Biar is, as we all know, Dr. Biar is a scholar, activist, and former political prisoner from South Sudan. He is the president of Revive South Sudan, a nonprofit organization that's based in Washington, D.C. He was recently a visiting fellow at African Center for Strategic Studies of the National Defense um, University and so forth. So I will put more detail, but without a delay. Um, uh, Also, Dr. Biar is not a member of PCA. Maybe we will hear from him, his vision, and so forth. Without delay, I will bring both gentlemen here. And Dr. Biar and Abraham, welcome to Lake State Media. Um,
Thank you.
uh, Dr. Biar, you can unmute yourself. You are on mute.
Thank you.
I know Dr. Jock will not be here this afternoon because he have uh, things that he have to do. Those are priorities that he had before we schedule him. Mr. Rajab is having a network issues. Is in and out. We might hear him if we need to hear from him. I have a capability of calling him if he would be able to do that. Gentlemen, welcome to Lake State Media. I have a simple question for, but before I do that, um, I would love to introduce you as on your credibility, but that will take forever. And if you do that as well, it's going to do take forever. But I want you to give a little bit introduction about yourself, just a minute or so, instead of me doing that. That would be awesome. We'll start with you, Dr. Biar.
Well, of course, thank you. This is really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us. For me, uh, as you mentioned earlier, I'm now working to put together this Revive South Sudan. And excuse me,
Bless you.
a nonprofit organization that is based here in Washington, D.C., and that is committed to analysis, understanding of South Sudanese issues, and advising people and institutions about things that can be done to make things better. For the rest of the things, I'm sure for me, I have previously worked in the government. I was also political detainees, as you mentioned. And it's really a pleasure to be here. So I think that's all I can say about myself.
Awolich, you have
Well,
taken several time here, but
yeah.
you might
Thank
have
you.
people that have, yeah.
Yeah. So I am a member of the PCCA, one of the co-founders of the PCCA, and before that, I was the managing director of the said institute, a position from which I resigned early this month. Or maybe it was last month. That's when I resigned, and and I was also involved with the South Sudan National Dialogue. So I was engaged with the government a lot and other institutions. Thank you.
Uh, Great. It's nice to have you guys. For myself, I am doing this. I have to make a quick announcement before I continue with the show. Uh, I am doing this based on personal capability as a host of this show and a member of Lake State Media. We have a situation that because of this show, where local staff has been threatening, and we have been threatening as well. Um, I I met with the team, and I make decision as individual and as a host to continue with the show. Uh, Maybe in the next couple of days, you never know, I will be suspended as well. But I will do the. I'm doing this as an individual, and I want to let our viewers know that, and general public, uh, as one of the team and a lead here as well, I have officially suspended, and I have announced it already. I have suspended all the local coordinator and staff on Lake State Media until further notice, uh, due to security, and that's fine. I have made a decision. If I ever get suspended or so, I might not be here for the next couple of weeks or so. That's just to let the public know as well. The reason I want you guys to have a conversation with you guys as a South Sudanese, we we have all sort of problems, and Lake State Media earlier, 3 years ago, noted something that is unusual. There was no a platform where all South Sudanese, whether you are for government of South Sudan, whether you have different opinion, and so forth, we turn out to have a conversation with people that we have the same ideology. If we are for a government, all we have is only what we said as a government. If you support a rebel or opposition, the only people that have a conversation is that particular group, and we see it's not healthy. It's not help as a country. It's not help as a nation. The best way is to have a conversation as a country. So that way, if I have a better solution, it might take you a time to understand my point of view, and it might take me a time as well. And at the end of the day, we have a solution. Um, my first question, since you guys have a different opinion how South Sudan is going to be governed or run as a country, what is your vision of South Sudan that you want? This conversation is going to base on current political situation and other things that are happening at this point. So, Dr. Biar, I know you are not a member of PCCA. On your personal perspective, what vision of country do you want to see in South Sudan? Uh, if you see it different, what's wrong and how is it going to be fixed? That question will go to all of you.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, my brother Peter, my brother Kench, for the personal stand that you have taken. And by sticking to your guts as an individual and a South Sudanese patriot, I really want to appreciate you, because freedom require effort and require standing on your ground. If everyone gives in to intimidation and threats, then a society that will emerge is a society where truth, justice, and accountability will not exist. And without those, it would be a situation of anarchy. And we don't want to live in that situation. This is why we agree to give each other some rights and understanding and provide common protection to each other so that we all prosper, so that we are able to realize our full potential. So people like you are indispensable, and you are leading by example by showing that individuals can take stand. So let me congratulate you, let me appreciate you, let me thank you. I know what it means to take a personal sacrifice. And when we do not fear whether it is a job that we are going to lose, whether it is that we will be detained, or whether that our lives may be taken, that's when really we know the meaning of freedom. And that is when we really live as free individuals. So thank you. And regardless of whatever happens, the people of South Sudan will stand with you. And I want to assure you that I personally stand with you. Now, to your question, you see, I don't believe that we have different visions of the country. And I don't believe that we have any real differences. Just simply because I am not a member of PCCA, it doesn't mean that I do not stand in solidarity with them. And in terms of the efforts and the objectives that they are trying to pursue. In fact, if you look at what the PCCA is calling for, it's really no different from what I have been talking about for the last several years, and for which I endured imprisonment. The same objective is what we are trying to pursue. I've been saying for a while that the problem of South Sudan, as it is that we have leaders that are not willing to lift a finger to serve the people. They care more about their own egos and their own personal benefits, and about entrenching their own power and surrounding themselves with protection and things that will allow them to remain there. It's not about serving the people. And we as a society, we are a society that is emerging from neglect, centuries of neglect and underdevelopment and poverty that has accumulated over generations to produce a very unique kind of misery in which only people of South Sudan, among very few other people in the world, live. Look at all the indicators, the maternal mortality, look at child infant mortality, look at political freedoms, look at inflation, look at basic economic standards, look at poverty, doubled since independence. So we are actually regressing then from addressing the fundamental challenge for which our people took up arms in 1983 and to pursue a course of liberation. So we say, this is not a surprise. This is not a surprise at all, because the current leaders we have went to the bush with a single objective, and that is liberation. And the capacities that they have, the understandings that they have, was indeed to pursue that. But they are fundamentally unfit for the challenge that the country now faces, because the challenge that is faced now is a challenge of nation building, of uniting the people, and of pursuing a vision of development and nation building in a 21st century world that is changing, and in which new kind of threats and opportunities are emerging with technologies that are advancing. We say that we as younger people, this is the reason why back then they call us, assemble us from everywhere in South Sudan to form this Red Army, is so that one day there will be people like us that understand the modern and the emerging world, and that can allow South Sudan to leapfrog to a higher level of development. And we have the ability to do this. So we say the fundamental problem is we have leaders that are unfit for the current challenges we face. We need to unite. Everybody on both sides of the conflict blame them, and they are not really forces for unity. So we say there has to be a change. The country is not being governed. The systems are failing. Poverty is getting out of control. Insecurity is the norm. And there is no need for it, because our people are actually very organized people. And with able leadership, they can be able to actually organize themselves and show the world that they can lead themselves. Lake State is an example. Just see what happened recently. When an able governor was put there and was able to work, within a very short time, you were able to see a difference that leadership can make. And right now, there is a semblance of stability that is emerging in that part of South Sudan that has been neglected and allowed to burn down for so long. So leadership matters. And there is no reason why people of South Sudan are forced to put up for so long with leadership that is not changing their lives for anything that is better. It's showing them misery that they have long endured and that they remember profoundly with sadness and grief. And what they want is to hope for a better society and a better future. And our leaders are saying, no, we have to lead you and keep you in your misery and in your poverty. And this is affecting everybody. So it's the same thing that those of Awolich are saying. The difference here is we haven't really discussed now how do we actually bring that about. And I think at the end of the day, our fundamental objectives is to see a young democratic nation emerge where there is liberty, where there is prosperity, and where there is true justice. And I think this vision is shared. So whenever there is a shared vision, the question of strategy is much, much more simpler than anything else.
Thank you, Dr. Biar. Mr. Awolich?
Yeah, can you remind me what the question was again?
All right. With all the current issues, what vision of South Sudan that would you want to see?
Okay, well, thank you very much. I also want to,
And how do you do it?
right, I want to join Peter in saying that we condemn those who are threatening Lake State media on the ground for hosting us. This is a weakness on the side of the state to fear having free discourse, and I'm sure Lake State media has extended invitation to the government to have a voice here in this media, and we all need media, whether we like it or not, whether we are a government, whether we are a church, or we are a non-profit organization. We need a media so that people are able to be informed. That is what media is about. Media is not opposition. Just because we are talking here, we should be held accountable for what we say, not the media that allow us to speak. So so I condemn that and ask the government and appeal to the government of Lake State, if it is the Lake State government that is threatening, or the government of South Sudan, that they should not harass people who are helping in bridging the divide among the people of South Sudan. What divides us is the lack of knowledge and lack of information, and the media is providing that. And so and we stand in solidarity with our colleagues here in Lake State media who are doing their job. Because if Lake State media decides today to suspend this show because the government is threatening, then how many more times are they going to be suspended from broadcasting information? It will be almost every time there is something uncomfortable for the government. And that is not acceptable. That is not the society we want to have. We also I am also concerned and condemn also the fact that a journalist working for South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation, SSBC, was suspended for covering the launch of the SPLM-IO secretariat in Juba. For God's sake, SPLM-IO is a member of the Government of National Unity. And so if South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation is a state media, then SPLM-IO is part of the state. So why suspend somebody who is covering that? So this is the bizarre part of this situation where we say, there is a peace agreement supposedly being implemented, and yet there is one party within that peace agreement that thinks that it is more legitimate in owning state infrastructure than others. That is the craziness that South Sudan has found itself in. And so we think that that country that we have now is an abomination to the people of South Sudan. We need a better country, a country where we are able to speak our minds and where media is allowed to cover news. Now, to the question, I think I also agree with Peter that we all have a belief in a country that we want in the future, now and in the future. And that is a country that is prosperous, a country that treats us equal, a country where we are free to choose, to make choices. For example, we could choose to run for office. It shouldn't be a problem. We could choose to get into media. That shouldn't be a problem. We could choose to be farmers. We should have the freedom of choice and the freedom to speak and the freedom to have opinions and a freedom to contest for the welfare of the people of South Sudan. And so those values are shared. It is the question of how do we get there that may be different. And so from this perspective of the PCCA, and as Peter has already mentioned, we think that the fundamental problem of South Sudan is the leadership failure. And a leadership failure that is also predicated on power struggle, particularly between President Salva Kiir Mayardit and Dr. Riek Machar. And for the last 10 years of our independence, this political power struggle and leadership failure has cost us so much. And the country has really digressed from democratic aspirations. Now it is a dictatorship and an authoritarian system. And so we think that one way to solve that problem, so that South Sudan could go to the country that is actually spelled out clearly in our national anthem, that we need a country that enables us to prosper as a people. And so you have to deal with this issue of leadership. And in our view, from the perspective of the PCCA, we think that these two leaders should just resign and go home, or not participate in the next election, and allow people to go for a democratic transition. This is our position, and it is not any different from basically what Peter has been saying, that South Sudan needs to have a democratic election. It is a question of then, how do you get to that democratic election? And what are the necessary conditions that must exist in order for you to have democratic election? These are the questions that we all should be grappling with. But the bottom line is that we have been failed by our own leaders, and that condition must change. And so, and then that will allow us now to go to that country that we all desire. Thank you.
Thank you, Awolich, and thank you, Biar. My next question would be particular goes to you, Biar. Recently, you were invited by President Obama, Democracy Summit. What was your take on that? And probably not everybody watched that show, particularly your part, because it was long. What was your take, and what would you have added if you would have uh, looked back and say, probably I would have added this to that? Um,
Well, yes, it was really a great honor to receive the invitation of President Joe Biden to attend and participate in the Democracy Summit. As you know very well, those who are studying political science or have been observing things, even within our regions, there has been a growing worrying trend over the last 15 years in which authoritarianism has been rising. and in which countries that were appearing to be democratic regress back to dictatorship and to authoritarianism. So this has gone on for so long, and authoritarians have been adapting and learning new technologies. Like, for example, in South Sudan, they monitor your calls when you are speaking on the phone. And that is actually illegal because people are supposed to be given freedom of privacy. No one is supposed to be spying on you unless if they have a warrant from the judge. So authoritarians have been learning these tactics, and they're using them to suppress their people and prevent them from participating in a genuine, participatory, and people-centered process. This has been happening, and it culminated for many people that are watching around the world in what happened here in the United States, especially over the last 4 years, and particularly since the elections of 2020 and the incident of January 6th. So that was a wake-up call here in America that indeed the world is going into a new age in which this age is going to be defined by a struggle between authoritarianism on one hand and democracy on the other. And if you see, this is actually manifested in the larger geopolitics epitomized by the rise of China. And with Chinese aggressiveness growing very fast and building up their military, beginning to challenge some of the international norms. And you've seen it also in Russia and what Russia has been doing in Eastern Europe. All of these are evidence that shows that there is indeed a fundamental struggle between freedom on one hand and authoritarianism on the other. So what Joe Biden was doing was basically assembling all democracies in the world. So about 110 democracies were invited, and also individuals that are part of this larger struggle for freedom. So this is part, and it's very directly relevant to what is happening in South Sudan. Because if you see, let us start from like the economy. From the economy, we rely on oil. Oil is in Upper Nile, particularly in Upper Nile. You are talking about Upper Nile State, and you are talking also about Unity State. And if you look at what is happening in these areas, the technologies that are being used, very substandard technologies coming from China that are polluting the environment. Right now, people that live in that area are being basically killed in mass. They're being wiped out, right? And there is inability to adapt better technologies that can actually allow both the people to live and coexist with the exploitation of the oil. And the problem is Chinese are very good at corruption. Yes, they come and they invest, and there is a role China can play. But at the end of the day, they come with corruption that distort institutions and prevent them from accountability. And at the same time, they further entrench their authoritarian model. And what you see, which is essentially part of also the legacy of our struggle, was that the armed struggle and the political struggle will merge in the SPLM, SPLA. And even right now, part of the problem is we are unable to separate the military from the politics. And this is the Chinese model. You have a party military state. So that is what has been replicated, and particularly also with Russia pushing this. So right now, America, for all these years, has been essentially defining its foreign policy based on global stability and protection of global institutions. And after 9/11, the main issue became war on terror. And war on terror became the driving agenda that defined American relations with other states. Well, what Biden is saying by holding this summit is that this is changing. For the first time now, America is going to put democracy, promotion of human rights, fight against corruption, promotion of free media. These are going to be the things that will define the foreign policy of America and determine who become friends of the United States and who will become its competitors. So this is really the challenge. So my participation was on a panel that was particularly focus on my experience as a former political prisoner. And I was honored to join Secretary Blinken and Minister Lundbergis, who is the Foreign Minister of Lithuania, and Undersecretary Uzra Zeya, and to also be joined by relatives of current political prisoners, people that are currently in prison, that are enduring the same kind of pain that I experienced and that I went through, and to also share my experience and why in the first place I was detained, the kind of ideas that threaten our government. And these are the same, this is the same kind of threat that you yourself has been threatened, and your colleagues who are on the ground in Lake State are being threatened because people do not want to have competition based on ideas. What they do is when you try to present ideas, they try to strangle you, prevent you from access to media, and then try to put you in prison and basically make it difficult for you to operate so that then you take up arms and go to the bush. And they hope that they will move on you quickly and kill you like Carbino, whom they kill, and whom basically they frustrate so that you had no other choice but to do that. Or when you go to the bush and you have killed enough people like David Yao Yao, or even Riek Machar, or a bunch of them, then now they say you are serious, and then you are invited to Juba in a red carpet, you are given millions of dollars, and you join the chorus as part of the system. So this system has distorted our society, has distorted our norms, because here is bad behavior that is being rewarded since 2005 from the integration of the SSDF militias. Every time people rebel, they come back senior than the colleagues that they left behind. So if you are loyal to the country, you don't want to kill your people, you want to just talk and say, brothers, talk. And what is even first interesting here is, if you remember in our own history in the SPLM, 2004, what happened in 2004 in Rumbek? President Salva had concerns about how John Garang was leading the movement. So he began this whole fiasco where he was trying to basically rebel. And when that didn't work, and when the SPLM realized this was a threat to the vision of the people, what happened? A big meeting was called in Rumbek. And he came and he said why he was unhappy. He was given a floor to talk. Yet here is he nowadays, not wanting people to have a conversation about the vision of the SPLM itself, right? It was because it was not his, it's not his personal thing, it's all our collective vision, and it was our collective struggle. All of us fought, contributed in so many ways. Some of us can even say, and there are people in the SPLM, and even if you study the history, you would argue that contributed probably more than President Salva himself. So why is it that people cannot have a debate? And why is it that people don't want to get toward elections? We have been a country for 10 years. We're not having election. And when people talk like that, they're detained. So I came to share my experience and to stand in solidarity with others in prison like Kwelaguer, who is still in prison, and to call for his release and to tell the government in Juba that you have to have a space for contestation. You know, you can say status quo. What is going on now is what we're going to give you more of it. And it's an option. If people want it, they will vote for you and they will accept the misery that you have created and live in it, but let them have other alternatives. And the other alternatives are individuals that are providing different vision of the country. And we have to build a nonviolent future. This nonsense that you have to go to the bush for you to be involved in the national conversation is rewarding people who are fundamentally unfit to be even involved in leadership to begin with. We have to have a decent conversation where we listen to each other and entrust that our people can make a judgment and decide where they want to go as a people. We cannot have a country that is shaped by warlords, those carrying guns. And we cannot have a country that reward those who try to destroy it. It has to reward the patriots that are trying to build it up, that are trying to make it a reputable country, a country that is proud in the world, not a country that people are ashamed, and a country that has become synonymous with killing, with corruption, and with all the terrible things that are going on now. And the reason is why? Because we have leaders that entrench themselves in power and that refuse to even do elections. So it's not only they are illegitimate, which they are, but that they even have no intention to legitimize themselves because they know they're fundamentally unfit and people don't want them, that even if they run and try to steal the elections, they will still fail because people of South Sudan will stand up and tell them it's time for you to go home. You have done enough. You have participated in the liberation struggle. The fact that we are independent is you deserve part of the credit, but you are unfit and you have no ability to step up to the challenge that are now faced by the people. And for the good of you, even your own legacy, and the good of the people of South Sudan, it's time for you to leave the scene. There are so many other people. If there is a candidate that you want to back, you back that candidate, and let's have, okay, and if you want to run, you are also free. Let's run, but let's have elections. And this whole thing of having national security pursue people, try to kidnap people in foreign countries, and then executing people, that nonsense, you know very well, when the time come, no one will be safe in that country. Huh? When the time comes, no one will be safe. So let us build a society that is better for us. Because right now, to be honest, the world is divided to a camp that advocate for freedom and a camp that advocate for dictatorship. And believe me, freedom is going to win because everybody enjoys freedom and is given by God Almighty. We are free first, either in life or in death. Freedom is our destiny.
Thank you. Well, with that note, I might jump the gun here. It was one of my questions because with your experience uh, in the prison uh, after you were released and living there, where we European we always have to make something out of it. There were complaints, oh, Biar is complaining that he was actually being followed and so forth, and why he left with the whole suitcase. Uh, w- uh, with that, what was your experience definitely in the prison? What have you experienced, and how did you make out of it? That's a personal question. I was gonna put it at the end, but since you bring up your experience, um, can
Well,
you?
you see, it was unpleasant experience, but uh, I consider myself among the lucky. Not only did I come out of it, but for most part, I was treated much better than others that were inside there, who were tortured day and night. You will hear people say, bring knife, bring gun, bring batons, bring nails, bring hammer. And like 5-10 minutes later, you hear someone screaming. And you wonder, is this now the hammer or is this the knife or what is it that they are doing to this person? And this will go on until after the second cock's crow, because we don't even have time. And they put me in this thing called solitary confinement, zanzan. You are locked in there. You don't know what time it is. You don't know anything. And then sometime like they'll turn on the light for like 2 weeks, turn it off for 2 weeks just to mess up with your head. When somebody dies, they leave them there, so you just sit there with a dead body and like eat with it. So things that basically the idea here is basically to traumatize you and break up your mind, try to break you so that you are unable to advocate for what you are advocating. And there are others that they kill, like I mentioned Dong Samuel. I mentioned um, uh, people like Agri Idris, people like Luala Kon, many, 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 many. And this has become systemic. There's even a team that was designed to do this. And it's something that is organized within the Office of the Director General of the National Security. Already, even some of them are sanctioned. There is like a task force inside that basically oversees these kind of crimes. and they are systematic. They're done all the time. People are taken to Luri and they are killed. And these people, we know them by name. We know them by name. They're individuals, and everybody knows them. So this happened, and it continues to happen because they continue to detain people. But what was interesting in the contrast was when we were transferred from the Blue House to Kober, Juba Central Prison. At Juba Central Prison, there was a sense of order. There was law and order. There was rights for individuals. There is a directive there, Malon Makwaj, reasonable. That it tells you you're right, where the law says you can do this, what you cannot do. And if you behave, you are treated equally like everybody else. So you find the intention there makes sense because every society has prisons. Prisons are intended for reforming criminals and so that they are integrated back into the society. And when you go to Kober, you find that they're even taught inside. There are schools inside, and they don't have a lot of resources, but they do the little that they do. And you feel that you are in your country, and even there is a sense of order and there is government. But Blue House, you feel like you have been kidnapped by terrorists, people that neither fear God or fear law or even fear authority, people that are drunk with power, that don't understand the value and the dignity of human life, and that do things that shame the essence of humanity before God. That's basically what happened at Blue House. And it continued to happen. It's a shame in the conscience of our country. And those who do this, I'm very sure they're traumatized. They can't be living. Because imagine cutting someone's throat who has never argued with you, who have never done anything to you, simply because they have an opinion that you can disagree with, opinion that you can challenge. But you kill him, you slaughter him like a goat and burn his body. Even God himself, don't you think even though you evade human accountability, that you will evade divine accountability? And if God exists, definitely justice will be served one day.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Usually, I don't like to hear those kind of stuff being shared. Sometimes they bring bad memories for individual. Um, but uh, I I feel bad, and I can feel what you have gone through. For both of you, let's touch a little bit foreign policy issue here. Um, this past week, it is the second time, probably within a month or two, where U.S. Foreign Senate has put out a resolution on South Sudan. You both read the resolution. Um, so, what is your take on that resolution? That question goes to both of you, Abraham and Biar. Uh, whichever way who want to pick it up first.
Welcome, Abraham. I've been talking a bit too much. I think
No, it's okay. You start that. Probably have more on it than I am, but you start on it. I will compliment. Yes.
Well, what is in this resolution is basically what people of South Sudan has been talking about for so long. We have been saying that we are being ruled by leaders that are not legitimate because we never voted for them as independent people. And now they exercise sovereignty over us, sovereignty that we did not give them. So that is number one, recognition. So the resolutions say South Sudan is being ruled by leaders that are not legitimate. And that is very powerful because this resolution was adopted unanimously. That means all the 100 senators in the US Senate voted for it. They know, and they are telling people of South Sudan that they know what they are going through and that they are being ruled by leaders that are illegitimate. Second, it talks about leaders that are not interested in peace. So already These leaders that are entrenching themselves on you in South Sudan, who are, by the way, pretend to be so strong, but very, very, very weak, because you see how afraid they are. They're saying these leaders that are ruling this country, we know that they are not credible and worthy partners. You cannot build something together. Even if you agree with them, they don't follow on their commitments. They say something, they don't do it. They say the same thing again, they don't do it. They say it again, they don't do it. And they have been like that forever, forever. And we have seen, everyone knows. So they're saying, we know this. But they're also saying we are standing in solidarity with you as people of South Sudan. And we want to work with other leaders that are emerging, whether they are in the government in Juba, whether they are in opposition, other leaders aside from Kir and Machar, so that we build a partnership to work on development, democracy, and accountability in South Sudan, state building. This is what they're saying. And they are saying they're basically now asking the Secretary of Treasury to now begin to review the US policy, because US policy on South Sudan has been confused, and in some part has not even really exist. It has been based on the supporting of this so-called peace agreement that keep on being postponed and extended and is not actually being implemented, and which no one is even following it up. IGAD is in chaos. So there's really no IGAD. Look at Ethiopia, look at Sudan. Chaos. Nobody is following up this peace agreement. So Kir and Machar can just decide to do whatever they want to do in Juba. So they know that. And we are saying we got to work with other leaders, and we got to think about how this country move forward. And the Secretary of State need to lead interagency review. This is review of either it is education policy, health policy, foreign policy, economic policy, anything. All the policy to do with South Sudan has to be reviewed. And what are they going to be reviewing? Review in the context of what is emerging as the US #1 priority, which is democracy, human rights, anti-corruption, accountability. And they are saying specifically that these other people, we know they are not credible partners. So let's work with others. And the money the US has spent a year in South Sudan, $1 billion. $1 billion. They're saying, let's think about how to spend that money better. So this is a great news for the people of South Sudan, and they should seize on this moment to know that the people of the world stand in solidarity with them. That the problem people know is not them. They can rule themselves. People of South Sudan are organized people. They're highly educated people. They can put their things together. The world knows that. And they are being told, we know also there are other leaders. It's not just about Ajak and Machar. So let us, Kir and Machar. So let's work with these other leaders. So this is what is going to happen now, moving forward.
Well, yeah, thank you, Peter, for that. Obviously the resolution which came out a month ago was, or maybe a little bit over a month ago, was the passage of this same resolution in the Committee on Foreign Relations in the Senate. But the one that came out this week was now a full vote of the Senate on the resolution, and so now it is a Senate resolution. And as Peter mentioned, it was passed by all the senators. We welcome that resolution very much as PCCA, and we think that it has given us the tools with which to pursue our objectives of peaceful, non-violent demand for change. And it has strengthened our capacity. Now it will strengthen. It is up to us as people who are pursuing nonviolent activities to work together to now try to give meaning to this resolution and provide tangible proposals, actionable proposals on what we believe South Sudan needs, and for which the partnership that the United States is asking for can be built around. So I think that is the value of this resolution. Obviously, you will hear people say that no one should impose change on South Sudan. That they will scream on the top of their lungs that those who are advocating for change and are asking the UN or the United States to intervene on the affairs of South Sudan, these are people who don't understand how the world works. Um, when we were fighting against the Sudan government, the United States had to intervene, and that intervention ended the longest conflict in Africa. And we are very proud of that intervention. For without it, it would have been difficult for us. Maybe we would still be fighting by now. And so the United States is a superpower, and it does have a say in what other countries do. Likewise, the United Nations is a membership organization for which South Sudan is a member, and it also had a say in what nations do. They provide humanitarian support, and if the government is unable to dispense its sovereign powers, it has a right to intervene. And so we think that the world should pay attention to South Sudan, and the resolution is a good step from the side of the United States. We demand that more concrete actions be taken. For example, one of the actions that could be taken by the United States, Troika, and even the UN members is this government that we have in Juba was brought in power as a result of a peace agreement, which they are unwilling to implement. So if the government is unwilling to implement the peace agreement as it has been negotiated, then the government has become illegitimate because its legitimacy is only uh, provided by the peace agreement, not by the sovereign will of the people of South Sudan. And so, so it is time for the international community, especially the Troika countries, to begin to question the credibility and the legitimacy of the uh, revitalized transitional government of national unity, which is brought about by peace agreement, which they are unwilling to implement. So without peace agreement, there is no legitimacy for the RT government. And so, as PCCA, we will work together with our allies and non-violent groups across South Sudan, and even those who are doing armed struggle. We will reach out to them and say the window of opportunity is here for us to pursue non-violent means of change in South Sudan, and that we don't want to see one more life being lost as a result of power struggle. We should be talking, we should be planning together and pushing for change using non-violent means. And so that is what we believe, and this resolution is a step in that direction. We, as members of the PCCA and our allies across the board, the RCM, the NPM, the UCC, and working together with Peter's non-profit organization, the Revive South Sudan, we will be pushing for more tangible actions to realize change, to end the failed leadership of South Sudan. That's what we'll be pursuing. Thank you very much. You are muted, Peter.
Uh, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I will keep moving. On that note, before I move to different topic or things that are happening currently in South Sudan, um, it was this week that the company called Arc Arc
ARC.
Winners, yeah, ARC, um, has been sanctioned under ball mill And I had the RC is one actually responsible for road construction to Juba. I mean, from Juba to Bargadal. What impact is that going to have? Is going to have on that road? Will the road go, or will just be a, a road of nowhere, going to nowhere?
Well, I can take that, and
Because
Peter.
it's a second time now. Anything that is run by Ball Mill has been because he has accused as one of the money laundering, corruption, and so forth.
Right. So the road to Bor and the road to Baragazal, we have said this previously. These are scams. There are no roads being built. Already, South Sudan has spent about 600 million on 38-kilometer road. Now you tell me what kind of road costs that much? So I think the decision to sanction the ARC is in place. Essentially, what we know and what we hear is that this company is not actually Bol Mel's own company. He's doing it for the president and the president's family. And the same thing with the ABMC, which was sanctioned previously. And so Bol Mel is somebody doing business on behalf of the president. And so, in other words, this sanction is aimed at trying to tell the president that the world is aware of the fact that he is involved in these schemes of trying to drain the money from South Sudan. We are also concerned about so in a way, if there was such a contract given to ARC, which is based on the allotment of crude oil, that can easily be transferred to another company and carry forward with the road construction. It should not stop the road construction. Our only concern is that construction, we are very skeptical about it. We don't think it is genuine. We think that it is being used as a conduit for the laundering of national resources. And so for the ordinary people who have gone to that road, and I know it has become now a ritual, people are yearning for development. Every weekend, people go just to be on that road because they love it. Yeah, they want to be on a tarmac road. They go and walk on it. I have seen the same thing with the road going to Baragazal. When they tarmac 1 mile, people just go there and park their car and walk on it, just to enjoy the privilege of being on a tarmac road. So the people are yearning for development. Yet our state, even with the allocation of crude oil for the construction of the roads are not going anywhere. And I wonder what could be the explanation for that. And it will not escape you to think that the corruption is part of that. So yes, so I think the idea, I personally think that sanctions against South Sudan are bad for ordinary people. They do affect the economy. But targeted sanctions on individuals who are seen to be enabling the commitment of illegal act, I think, are justifiable. And so in that regard, the sanctions on ARC are justified, and we welcome those. Thank you very much.
Dr. Biar?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that we as a South Sudanese people always need to remember that everything that we are doing and the struggles that we are engaged in, they are not zero sum. My win doesn't mean you have to lose. And you winning does not mean that I have to lose. We can all win. And I think we need to understand that we will always need to have some compromises so that we create a space in which we can build greater trust and agree on a way forward that we can follow together. Because we are one people, even those who are in Juba and who are responsible for some of these atrocities going on in the country. We do agree that we are citizens of the same country and we have equal rights to build a shared future that also accommodate them. It's not just also about us. See, my contention is this. Since 2005, South Sudan government has not built really any road. The only road now that is tarmac that link us to outside is the road that was built by the US aid that connects Juba to Nimale. And if you try to look at how much money has accrued into the coffers of South Sudan government since then, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars. Nothing to show for it, to be very honest with you. And massive scandals that have happened, Dura Saga, just general disappearances of money, you know. So when these roads were being built, you know, my initial reaction was, well, these people have been stealing this money for so long. And at the very least, if they are going to steal and leave something for it, so let's say, even though there is 10 billion that is allocated to this road, but even in the end, 2 or 3 billion is what actually end up being in the road, and the 7 billion disappear. That would be better compared to like in the past, where like 30 billion disappear, and there is really nothing to show for it. So, and my other greater concern is if you really see the country now struggle with this flood, and you see it in Upper Nile in particular and other parts. And there were some things that I saw that were being done that, although we disagree on fundamental issues, you say at least this is beneficial to the people. Like the construction of the dike in Bor, I saw that ARC was responsible for, and even the road and how it has changed the economy and improved the lives of the people of Jonglei. So that is a positive thing because it's something that we did not have that we now have. But the fundamental issue here is how United States understand the role of Benjamin Bolmel, and they believe that he was linked to this company, that he was the one that was leading it. And that automatically called for automatic sanctions. Because if someone that has been sanctioned previously is engaged in business and known to be engaged in other business, those businesses are automatically just added on to the list because that person that is part of it has already been sanctioned. So that is the context. And you can see with the winners too, because the winners, I don't think it's actually an operational company. It exists only in name, but it's sanctioned because it's associated with Bold Mill. And as Abraham Awolich put, the general belief is that the main beneficiary is the president himself. Now, the thing is, why is it only Bold Mill? That is really the other issue that people should look at, because these sanctions were taken to show that the U.S. is serious about the new commitment it is making in terms of placing democracy in the center of its policy. So then you wonder, what about others closer to the president, like his daughters, for example, who are also fundamentally engaged in similar kind of activities, and other members of his family? What about those who are engaged in the human rights violation? What is going on there? And with everything that is happening, it's very interesting to see what would happen going forward. Because I think clearly right now, the fundamental question is government is increasingly weak and is financially stressed. It cannot continue to borrow, even though it goes to China, and China has been extending these loans. We know that China is actually now trying to take advantage of South Sudan by basically stealing the money. So they're not going to just continue to give them. And right now, there is the new parliament that was just inaugurated. You have 550 people now to feed, to take care of, and to pay. And then you will have the new security force that is now graduated. So fundamentally, the resources will become very, 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 very concerning. And I think what you will see will happen from there is that pressure will grow. And I think this is good. And we want more pressure to grow so that indeed we begin to really see what can be done, so that we hold these elections, so that these elections happen, so that people of South Sudan finally have the say instead of certain warlord sitting and agreeing to very strange things like 5 vice presidents. What country in the world have 5 vice presidents? Simply because everybody wants to be called Excellency Vice President. So then they create five, and more rebels are outside wanting to be accommodated. Maybe they want to add another 2 vice president or like what. That is strange. That is unacceptable. So I think what we need to do is to understand that, at least for me, I understand the institutional challenges that the country face, and I understand the need to do the right thing. And if there is a genuine effort in it being done, in the end, no one is really against anyone. But what we want to do is a country that is good for all of us. And if people are occupying positions and using resources in a way that is inconsistent to realizing that, then we are going to contest that, and we are going to mobilize our people and tell them that the fundamental power, the ultimate power, is with them, and they have a right to change their future. I just want to add something also, because I see some of the comments that people are putting. You see, some of us, because we are talking from the West, people think that we have abandoned the country. That is not true. In fact, many of us are going to come back. When we talk about these elections, we don't talk about these elections in theory. We talk about these elections in practice. And we are not going to stand as a candidate standing in the United States. We're going to do it right in South Sudan and see what will happen. And indeed, we all know what has happened with the things that we have endured in the past. But because of what happened, it does not mean we give up the struggle. So a time will come. There need to be reforms. We push this for these reforms, and these elections will happen, and they will be contested very seriously. And people of South Sudan will decide where they want to go and what vision of the country to follow.
Peter, you are next.
I keep doing this. I'm sorry. With that, let's continue trend down then with the next election and the current peace agreement. So the first question would be the two peace partners in Juba, especially how is the government of national unity going at this point? Are they making any progress? If not, why and what is the problem?
Yeah, I can. Are you still talking, Peter, or are you done?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so what is going on with the government of national unity? So that is a good question. We think that the government of national unity has never taken off from the first place. That uh, it is fictitious. It is not real. The real power of the transitional government of national unity has not existed. It is a question of one stronger party swallowing the others. And so really, whether you can call it a government of national unity is very doubtful, because there is one real power that is in the hands of President Salva Kiir and those he trusts. Those of Dr. Riek Machar and Hussein Abdel are mere appendages to the main part of the government. And so we think that the government of national unity is not going very well. It is unable to function as a unity government. It is not able to make decisions, important decisions together. For example, the issue of the unification of the armed forces uh, is it's basically President Kiir's party that dictate what happens. If the forces are to be graduated, they decide. If they are not to be graduated, they decide. They also decide how much money to be allocated for those functions. And so technically, the concept of the government of national unity doesn't apply in this case, because there is one party that dictates how things go. And so the second aspect of this is to say that the mandate of the Artigono is the consolidation of peace, which we have not seen much of. We continue to see simmering violence in Tumbra, in Jongle, in Warap, and even in central and eastern Equatoria. So the Artigono has failed to consolidate peace. Two, because it is not able to unify the forces, it has created uncertainty, a gross uncertainty in the country. Everybody is uncertain what will happen, and so really peace remains a mystery to many people in South Sudan as we speak. The second aspect of the assignment of Artigono is to consolidate the economy, to revive the economy. And we have seen the economy has tanked so badly as we speak. Even though the World Bank and the IMF have provided some lifeline support to manage the exchange rate and to stabilize the currency, the earning power and the purchasing power of the people of South Sudan has degraded so badly that now the poverty rate has increased, from half of the population to now nearly 90% of the population falling below poverty line. And right in Juba, right in the capital city, people are not able to afford food. The very men that are protecting the country, the soldiers, they are not able to pay for their meals and that of their families. Even government ministers, even at the local level, at the state level, they are not able to afford anything. And now we know that a number of concerns are being raised. For example, currently in Jonglei, the civil servants demand that their salaries be raised. Yeah, so technically, the Artigono has not provided any hope for the economy. The economy is tanking further still. And of course, the third job of the Artigono is to prepare the ground for elections. There are a lot of things that you need to do for that to happen. One among which is that you really have to review the laws that exist. Laws that are seen to be repressive should be reviewed. That people have to embark on the making of the new constitution. The refugees have to be resettled, and that census has to be conducted. And then now you have the electoral law, which enables people to go for election. Now, those things, we have not started working on those. And you are left with 13 to 14 months until you come to an end of the Artigono. And so I'm very pessimistic about the Artigono. I don't think Artigono actually ever taken off. It is functioning in theory, but in practice, there is no Artigono. It is the government of South Sudan under President Kiir that is operating. The other parties have become appendages. They have been weakened to the extent that they can be shut down. For example, we have just discussed the fact that a journalist covering the launch of SPLM-IO Secretariat was suspended, and the SPLM-IO doesn't say anything. So what does that tell you about Artigono? Yeah, so in essence, I think that I don't want to be part of people that are deceiving the people of South Sudan that there is a peace agreement that is being implemented fully, and that there is an RT-GONU that is functioning well. I think it has failed. I think it is a sham. It is President Salva Kiir who calls the shot. The other parties have completely been silent. So that is my take on the situation of RT-GONU. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Biar? Unmute yourself.
Thank you. I have been very skeptical about the peace process from the very beginning when the negotiation started. And then this continued all the way to the beginning of the RT-GONU. I never taken our leaders to be sincere in what they say. I do not believe that they can change because their behaviors are so entrenched. And we have all got to know them and know that this is what they are doing and that's what they are capable of, and they cannot possibly do any better. And it's the reason why the people of South Sudan say during the national dialogue that they would like President Salva and Riek Machar to resign, is because they came to a fundamental conclusion that these people are fundamentally unfit to exercise any form of leadership. So that has been there. And when you continue to create systems that is based on Kiir and Machar sitting at the top, you are basically entrenching this behavior. You are preventing the South Sudanese people from political discourses that can actually elevate the civic consciousness of the South Sudanese people so that they are more serious and informed about how to exercise their duties of citizenship. So, of course, it's not working. And of course, there's no intention to make it work. Each time you hear that they have no money. Now, these people, sometimes they think we are so stupid, because think about it. They say they have no money to implement the peace agreement. They say they have no money to pay the civil servants. They say they have no money to pay the army. They say they have no money to give to the states. Yet, oil is flowing day and night, and we see that by evidence of the environmental pollution that our people in Upper Nile and Unity are forced to endure. Money is flowing. We see it in our eyes. We're like fat cats in Juba that are eating our resources and displaying their wealth in front of our eyes. We see it that there is the National Revenue Authority and trucks are moving into South Sudan. There is trade, there is visas that are being given, and there's money that is being generated day and night. Where does this money go? Where is this money? It's not there to implement the peace agreement. It's not there to pay the civil servants. It's not there to pay the army. And the only people that are being paid is the national security and Tiger. And there is oil flowing, and there's all these other sources of revenue that are happening. So that shows that it's not a priority to fund the implementation of the peace agreement and to fund the operation of the transitional government. And therefore, the whole thing is a charade and is a show. And this is why you must end it. And the only way to end it is to make the argument that we are making to the international community. Because, and by the way, it's not that I doubt the people of South Sudan that they cannot do this alone, but because of the magnitude of this struggle and the righteousness of our cause, we cannot shy away from asking support from others around the world that stand in solidarity with our struggle and that want to help us. So therefore, let's ask them to help us. And we ask them by telling them our story, that for more than a century, and indeed more than 60 years of armed struggle, our people fought for freedom, for basic right to be able to have a say in the future of the country. Because if you remember from the Juba Conference of 1947, we were just taken and given to the Sudan, given to the North. And we were not even administered together during the colonialism. And when that decision was made, our people were basically full. And it came from a decision that has been made a year earlier in Sudan in 1946, where it was decided that the two regions will be merged. And that was only North Sudanese making that decision without the involvement of our people. It's the same thing that followed with the adoption of the constitution and the emergence of Sudan in 1956. We had no say. Our people wanted federalism. Nobody wanted to accommodate what they are saying. And they continue to fight. And that's why millions and millions of people of South Sudan died. That is why every South Sudanese that is living have scars that they can show as a living fruit of the pain that they endure to ensure that freedom prevails in South Sudan, so that they can have a say on the future of their country. And there's nothing more important than having a say on who govern you, who your leaders are. Even in the village, we do this. Even with our traditional chieftaincies. I come from a family of chieftaincies. People decide who the chief will be. And they sit around and there is competition. And the best person wins. And the society unite and they move forward supporting the leader that they have elected. That is our culture. That is our norm. That is why it was so painful to see what Arab was doing to us. And that is why it was right for all our people, including them, President Salva and Dr. Riek, to go to the bush so that people of South Sudan can have their say. Now imagine since getting that say, since 2011, with the election supposed to be held in 2015, our leaders have been intentionally preventing us from having that say. It has gone to the level that MPs, somebody is pretending to be my MP from Twitch, but I did not even vote for him, don't even know him. He happened to join Riek Machar, and because Riek Machar is given certain numbers of the members of parliament, he is an MP now. Now, what is that? That is an insult to the wounds and to the scars that are visible in our bodies. And all we want is a chance to be able to have a say in the future of our country. So elections were postponed when the war started in 2013. They say 2015 is not possible, 2018. When 2018 came, you know, they signed an agreement in 2015, but then 2016, you remember what happened at J1. Again, they sabotaged the agreement. National security has always been planning to sabotage, to prevent any meaningful movement forward. And you see really the intentional working together of President Salva with Akolkur. And that's what happened. And therefore, elections did not happen. So they were pushed to 2021. 2021, no elections, because the peace agreement said the election would be in 2022. But then people don't want to implement it. So then the elections are put to 2023. We cannot continue being lied to that elections are going to happen when they haven't happened already for 10 years since independence. There are kids that were only 8 at independence who are now eligible voters, and they see democracy everywhere in the world, even in our region. There is democracy. People are voting in Kenya. People are voting in Uganda. People are, even Sudan, even at Bashir, after we succeeded, even before he was overthrown, he held elections. We never had election. They see it and they wonder why. So this thing cannot be delayed anymore, because this is the reason why we struggle for so long, so that we have the dignity and the right to choose who lead us and where our country go. So this is what needs to happen. It needs to happen. And if the transitional government is not able to do what is needed for these elections to happen, it would have shown to the world and confirmed what the people of South Sudan keep on saying, that these people are incapable and therefore cannot allow South Sudanese to participate in the democratic process. And therefore, when they extend the mandate again, it's no different from a coup d'etat. It's no different from coup d'etat. It's an illegitimate extension and usurpation of power. It's a power that belongs to the people to decide. They usurp it and give it to themselves. That is a coup d'etat. And therefore, they need to face consequences that happen to those who do coup d'etat. They need to be kicked out of all the international organizations. They need to be sanctioned, and there need to be pressure for them to stand down and hand power back to the people. And the people will decide the kind of arrangement that they will put together so that the country move forward, and so that the ideals of the liberation struggle are realized.
Thank you, gentlemen. Um, well, I will still keep going on that note. Uh, if that's the case, is there going to be election in 2023?
Yeah, Peter, you can take that. Then I will follow.
The thing is, we should behave as if there will be election in 2023, and we should exert all the efforts that are required for this election to be held. People need to understand that this is not something that only they can leave to those who signed the power sharing. It's not something that can be left to the international community or to the United States. Citizens have to demand their freedom. And we know that from experience, that unless if you're willing to walk the walk, you're not going to be free. So we have to be willing to walk the walk and to be able to do what is needed so that these elections actually materialize. And it begins with us demanding them, showing that we demand them, showing that we mean that business, talking about it, having a conversation with our neighbors, beginning to have a political discourse about how this election can be held and what is going to be our role in ensuring that this election happen. How do we contribute to creating the kind of environment that can enable these elections to be held? These are things that we need to be concerned about and to do. Now, of course, Juba will continue to do what it does. And what it does is it wants to remain in power without elections, so basically illegitimately, to basically maintain and control its power, while at the same time pretending that it has intentions to hold elections, but never, ever doing what is required to hold elections, so that elections are never held and they will continue to rule forever. That is the fundamental contradiction of the South Sudan situation. So if they continue to have that behavior, we now make our case known to the world and we lobby for the support and let the people of the world know that freedom is not only our own struggle, it's everybody's struggle. And threat to freedom anywhere is a threat to freedom everywhere. And therefore, they have to join us in our struggle to make sure that we realize this freedom and that our people are able to vote. And if that is missed, we will now make it clear to them, look, despite our best efforts, and despite your best efforts, these people have failed again after having failed in 2015, 2018, 2021, 2022. Now in 2023, they fail again. Do you genuinely believe these people can ever hold elections? And if the answer is no, then what can be done? And I think this is why they would then need to be treated like coup leaders that have usurped power, and that international pressure is put on them. South Sudan is a landlocked country, and making it clear to the countries in the region that this behavior can no longer be tolerated. So I hope the government understand this and therefore begin to prepare for elections. And for President Salva and Dr. Riek to know that this will be a good legacy for them to allow the South Sudanese to experience democracy and vote. It will be a great legacy for them. But if they don't do it, then people of South Sudan will pursue that no matter what, because it is a desire of the people. They have desired it before Salva Kiir and Riek Machar were even born. And they will continue to desire that even after they have long died. So they cannot stand on that. This is such a force that if they stand on it, it may destroy them. So they allow this force to move forward. It's a movement that has been happening. It's fueled from the struggle and the sacrifices of our ancestors, of which we are adding into with our own energy and creativity to propel it forward to make sure that it succeeds.
Well, thank you, Peter, for your comments. So with regards to the question of whether we'll have election in 2023 or not, I seriously doubt that the government would have the capacity or the political will to have the election by 2023. So that I think, I doubt if they will have it done. And as a matter of fact, we want elections to happen, but we want elections that are meaningful, that are not simply procedural, that only confirms the legitimacy of President Salva Kiir Mayardit and others. We want elections that are consequential, that will change the direction of South Sudan. And for you to have those meaningful elections, there must be fundamental things that must be in place. One of them, we really have to have a neutral professional army, an army that is not loyal to President Salva Kiir Mayardit, an army that is not loyal to Dr. Riek Machar, an army that is not loyal to SOA and its leaders, an army that is not loyal to Tudkel or to anyone else, but an army that pays allegiance to two things only: the constitution of South Sudan and the sovereignty of South Sudan. That is the type of country that we need right now. But we think that is very difficult to achieve that country right now, given the intransigence of the leadership to move the country forward, and the fear that they have that if they lose power, their lives and the lives of their families may be at risk. Which is why we think, from the perspective of the PCCA, the exit of the two leaders can be negotiated. The people of South Sudan do not intend to harm these two leaders. They want them to leave power so that South Sudan can move forward. They are stuck with it. They have been given opportunity time and again to demonstrate their ability, their leadership capacities, but they have failed. They have failed the country. 1 second, somebody is calling. Hello, I'm not able to talk now. I'm on a show. Thank you. Yeah, so the country needs to move forward. President Salva Kiir Mayardit and Dr. Riek Machar, and more so President Salva Kiir Mayardit, is not moving the country forward. Even he believes that the country is not moving forward. And so if we were to have that opportunity of moving our country forward, then we need a new political landscape in the country. So there has to be a reconstruction of the new army, professional, inclusive, that brings in those of Gadwij Dual, those of Johnson Olony, that brings in Paul Malong, brings in Thomas Shirillo, and the army that we have now, and that of Dr. Riek Machar, and those of Tabandeng, all of those armies put together is green and confirmed as the army of South Sudan, and then completely delink them from the politics. If you can do that, then you can then now talk about having a political dialogue that will produce an agreement, a consensus, a political consensus on what are the core values of South Sudan, and which will then feed into the constitution of South Sudan, permanent constitution, which will then produce the election law. And now the contest of the election will be how each party believes they can implement this agenda. Part of that agenda has already been agreed on by the South Sudan National Dialogue. So the question, for example, if Peter and I were to contest in an election and we are in opposite side, my job would then be to present how I'm going to implement this agenda of South Sudan. Peter will then present how he is going to implement this agenda of South Sudan. Somebody else, Tudka, for example, if he's running, he will present his agenda for South Sudan. This is what we need now. And so the opportunity that would be produced if President Kiir and Riek Machar step aside is a new spirit of the country. But if they were to contest, we know what the results are going to be. We have seen this already in 2010 or 2011. When they contested, they were on the same team. Oh my goodness, 1 second. This person is non-stop. Hello?
I mute Abraham for a second.
So let us. I agree with Peter that we need to demand that there be election in 2023. But before we reach 2023, we are now going to 2022. Let's spend the whole 2022 preparing for that. And one way we could prepare for this is for the president now and Dr. Riek Machar to come forward and say, people of South Sudan, thank you for your trust for the last 30-something years. We will not run for the next election. And that let us now have a political dialogue where we bring all these people on board. Peter and I are willing to come back to Juba and be on the streets of Juba and be able to make our case. And we could agree on that country, the future of that country that we want. And then we contest. We will produce ideas now, how do we run that country? And that will be the basis of the election. But as we talk, even if President Kiir were to come in today and say, I want to have election tomorrow, I will not accept because the conditions are just unfavorable. The conditions will simply allow him to give himself legitimacy. And that is exactly what we fear if you don't take steps to address these issues of security. If you don't take steps to address the political dialogue, to have an agreement, if you don't take a step to open up the political space that is needed to have a meaningful election, and to have that agreement that even if you were to lose election, there would be no violence. Even if you want to contest as a governor and you lose the election, that there will be no violence. And to get the assurance that the election will be protected from being stolen by those who have incumbent power right now. So these are the concerns that we have. And so we want to have the election in 2023. Therefore, we need to take steps now to make sure it happens. And we want to have the assurance that there is a level playing field, and that an illegitimate power, which President Salva Kiir has with those who are around him, is not confirmed by an election that is stolen. So that those fears need to be addressed, and they start with the construction of the security landscape. Without that, elections would likely make the country even more vulnerable. And we are ready as the people of PCCA to demand these changes through popular uprising. If the government is not listening, we will mobilize the people of South Sudan to pour to the streets and demand these elections to happen, and to demand these changes that are necessary to happen. That is our position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will keep going through that side. Let's say, what if the two parties, the SPLM-IO and the government, let's say Atagon, I guess, if they say, well, we don't have a capability of conducting election in 2023. So what's next? Unmute yourself, Peter. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is excellent question, and I would like to start with it. I think ultimately there are people within South Sudan government that realize what Abraham is saying, that they do not have the capacity to actually make these elections happen. Not only that, they're extremely broke and have no resources to do the things that are necessary to make sure that the elections happen. And we recognize that. And if there is a genuine intention and genuine efforts, there is a way in which support can be provided. One of the things that is obvious here is that without such capacity, and of course, the fact that the state is so weak and new, such elections will need to be supervised by the international community through the United Nations missions in South Sudan, primarily, and through all the other elements within the country to ensure that these elections happen, that they are credible, and that they are fair, and that there is a level playing field in which people can compete and have access to resources and to media and things that will ensure that this competition happen in a way that is fair and a way that allow the people of South Sudan to engage sufficiently in such a democratic exercise. So that is number one. We have to ensure, and it's one of the things that we have to demand, that you can't just leave this to the National Election Council on its own. It has to be also done in close coordination with the international community. And as a result, we can provide resources. We will look for friends of South Sudan that want to see democracy, that are interested to ensure that people of South Sudan exercise that fundamental right to vote. And there are partners and donors that support this work and who I believe can be mobilized. And this is something that we can do in conjunction with those in Juba, because at the end of the day, it is our ultimate objective as people of South Sudan to experience such a process, because that is really will be the culmination of our entire struggle. So this can be done, is doable. The UN peacekeeping force in the country is 17,000. So what we'll push is to ensure that is increased by additional 5,000 troops. And these 5,000 troops will be deployed in key areas to ensure that the candidates running for different positions are protected. And at the same time that the poll workers who are entrusted with the conduct of elections are entrusted, and that sufficient resources will be made in advance to allow for training and for all the logistics to be prepared in advance for such an exercise to take place. And therefore, the South Sudanese security forces would have to be augmented by the international security, and we will insist on such a thing. And our people also will have to be well educated and the capacities built that they are able to protect their right to vote and to ensure that the elections and the result that will emerge reflect the will of the people of South Sudan.
So the question, Peter, was what happened? What if the election doesn't happen? What happened? Is that the question?
No, I think I have already answered that question, because when the election don't happen, it will then confirm what the problem has been, which is these leaders have no intention of ever exercising a legitimate power. And therefore, they're acting like coup military leaders who are seizing power from people, and therefore they should be treated as coup leaders. So that question has been answered. Mm-hmm. But what he was saying was that whether the government has the capacity, and without such capacity, if they admit that they have no such capacity, what can be done? And therefore, what can be done is then for that capacity to be offered. The UN, in conjunction with the African Union, can help provide that capacity and provide like infrastructure, help that infrastructure to grow. UN has a lot of helicopters in the country. There's a lot of logistics, so a lot of assets can be provided, resources can be provided. And when the next UNMISS mandate is authorized, and you have seen it when the previous mandate was authorized, we push to have the conduct of the election be elevated as a primary focus of why the UNMISS is on the ground. And we hope in the next reauthorization that it is elevated even more, and that there is beginning now to be deployment of resources and sending into the country of the kind of teams that are required to already encourage and elevate the civic knowledge of the South Sudanese people, so that their participation is of enormous quality.
Right. So thank you. In that regard, then yes, if the election doesn't happen, obviously the country is at risk of falling apart. So without an election, you don't have a transitional government of national unity, and therefore it is up for grab. And of course, we will not accept an extension of the Article beyond its current mandate given by the agreement. And so, if those of the president and Dr. Yeg and others are banking on extending their life for another 3 years after the Article comes to an end uh, by 22nd of December or February 2023, then we will not accept that. The Artigono will become illegitimate. The president and those around him will become illegitimate, and um, we will ask for them to exit. Um, so that is something that we need to make clear, that South Sudan faces a choice of falling apart or pulling itself together. And if the president and the current leadership uh, do not give South Sudan a chance until that time, it will be recorded in history as the biggest failure of leadership in Africa or anywhere in the world, when leaders fail time and again to deliver what is expected of them. As far as we are concerned, as the members of PCCA, there is no such thing as lack of capacity when it comes to an election. You can borrow capacity. It can be lended to you by the international community. What is not there, what cannot be given to you is a political will to do the right thing. South Sudan cannot borrow political will. South Sudan cannot be given in aid political will. South Sudan cannot buy political will. It has to exist within the country. And political will comes from those who have power and authority. And right now, the person who has the power and the authority to provide political will in South Sudan is President Salva Kiir Mayardit, something that he has refused to give for the last 16 years he has been in power. And so he has a choice to see the country falling apart, a country for which millions have died, or to at least act for one time to demonstrate leadership by stepping aside and creating that environment for election. South Sudan cannot survive as a country without that leadership that is needed now. Because the responsibility of keeping South Sudan together as one country lies with the president, because he has the power to make decisions and he has the power to unify the country. The fact that the country is not united is a result of his unwillingness to do so. People are willing to listen. For example, the national dialogue, which he initiated, people listened. People said, okay, we are going to talk. And they did. And they made decisions. And so, yes, I agree with Peter that if there were to be a political will from President Salva Kiir starting tonight in Juba, we could have an election in 2023. And all the obstacles that are considered to be a challenge for an election could be addressed. And the international community would be willing to provide the support that is needed. The region would be willing to provide the support that is needed. I don't think there has ever been anyone in the rest of the world that has ever turned South Sudan down when they seek to do the right thing. The hand has always been extended to South Sudan. And so even the force that Peter is talking about, if there is a political will and there is a genuine desire on the side of President Kiir to move the country forward, we will not need extra UN forces. Even the present force in South Sudan, we may not even need it. And so, yes, there has to be election in 2023. If there is no willingness to move toward that direction, then those of us who are engaged in this, demanding this, will continue to agitate for popular uprising so that the demands of the people of South Sudan, and Peter is right, the ultimate power rests with people. That is basically what it is. And the idea of democracy, the reason why they say in democracy that the majority wins is because there is an element of force attached to that. If majority of people in the country believe one thing and people have to fight for it, of course the largest number of people will always win. And so we really have to so the responsibility rests with President Kiir to determine whether the violent change will determine the future of South Sudan, or a peaceful transition will determine the future of South Sudan. And we think that it is cheaper and it serves everybody better if we take the peaceful route. That is, if decisions are made that are right, and if political space is open, that if the desire to have a better future is our common objective, why is that difficult? Why is it so hard to make those decisions? And so, so from our perspective, the issue of capacity cannot prevent an election. We can borrow that from the world, and it will be granted, as Peter mentioned, whether it is money, whether it is machinery, whether it is an electronic system, whichever we want to borrow or we want to be given in aid to us, the world will be willing to do so. The only thing we cannot borrow is the political will, because that will is vested in one person, and that is the president. And he is the only person who can assure that. Failure to do so is what provokes citizens like us to rise up and say, okay, we want our power back. If you are not able to exercise this power rightly and for the interest of our people, then we want it back, and we can give it to somebody else. And whether he likes it or not, if he doesn't make the decisions that are needed now, that power will be taken by people, and they will give it to somebody else with his or without his permission. And there are consequences for delaying those decisions, and that include him being forced out of office and being humiliated, which is something that nobody would want to do right now. He should be given an honorable exit to lead power with his colleagues and create an environment for secession. Even if he were to say, okay, you, Peter and Abraham, you are bad kids. I don't want you to secede me. I want so and so to secede. That would be a change. That would be excellent. We don't have a problem with that. But something has to give in, and it is the president's turn to give in. It is no one else to give in. Thank you very much.
All right. Before I go on and on, I have an interesting question that come up from the viewers. Usually I do this at the end, but this question I'm going to throw in there and go back to the main agenda. It's Abraham Awolich or Peter Biar Ajak in for 2023 election? That's a question there from the...
Peter, go ahead.
Look, the fundamental thing that we are fighting for is the right to vote. So before even the speculation become whether Peter want to run, what is really driving me and motivating me is the right to vote. I want to vote for someone that I like, someone that I agree with. And I do believe South Sudanese have leaders, a lot of leaders, who are capable and who have abilities, whether these are young people or people in the middle age, they are there. There's no shortages of leaders in South Sudan. The problem is many of them have not been stepping up. They want to stand in the background because many of them are actually cowards and they lack consistency. They have no ability to put their neck out for the public cause. And that has always been in the human society. There are opportunists who crave attention. That is all that they desire. And there are opportunists that crave resources, and that is all that they desire. And there are those that crave power. And because they crave power, they hide behind power. It's like there is this animal that when a human being is walking and they see the hand is like swinging, they think the hand will fall off and they will grab it. So they lie behind a dictator like Salva, and then they walk behind him, or dictator like Riek, and then they think whenever this dictator dies, they will be the one who will be there. And there are many like that. But there are many other leaders in South Sudan. So if there are those who step up, it's not necessary that Biar Ajak become the leader of South Sudan. It's not necessary that Abraham Awolich become the leader of South Sudan. There are so many people that can do better. But they have to show characters of leadership. And leadership, the fundamental character, is courage. If you have people that are cowards, that are weak, that are not capable of great and the ultimate sacrifice, can they provide leadership? Part of the problem here, like imagine people that commit crimes in South Sudan and they are not held accountable. Why is that? You cannot run a public organization without holding people accountable. And they commit crimes, and you complain about it. So imagine now, how many times have you heard President Salva complaining about others who are allegedly the one who are corrupt, who are doing the bad things? Yet there is no one single time he has actually prosecuted them. It shows weakness. And the same thing with those that try to stifle public debate. They cannot argue. They have no vision. They have no ideas that can entice people, that can convince people that this is the right thing that should be pursued. And therefore, we will not allow South Sudan to be stuck in misery because leaders who we expect to step up are cowards and they prefer to benefit from the current system and the current mess rather than challenge it. And if we reach that point, then we are capable of offering ourselves and our blood and our struggle so that people of South Sudan realize their destiny. So we're not going to wait for a Messiah, especially if people are being opportunistic and calculating. We will grab the bull by the horn and provide by example that what we argue is possible. If you see now, for example, what is happening in our country with the misery that our people live in, climate change that is affecting country in a very strange way. In Upper Nile and Barghazal, there is flood. All the crops are dying, animals are dying, and everywhere is flooded. People are basically displaced from their homes. In part of Eastern Equatoria, you have basically a famine where there is no water and animals are dying. This is the strange effect of the climate change. And this is something that needs to be addressed. And as we speak, and recently, if anyone that has paid attention to the recent conference, the COP26 that was held in the United Kingdom, there is a fund that has been created to help countries like ours to adapt, to manage the crisis that the climate change is creating so that our people are able to cope. And it's a lot of resources. But these resources, they are not going to be given to leaders that the international community do not trust and do not see as partners. And as you mentioned from the beginning of the show, this resolution that was passed by the US Senate makes it clear that they don't see President Salva or Riek Machar as credible partners. They cannot get fund from those resources. And if you imagine now, if we were able to build canals in places like Jonglei, not necessarily for the benefit of North Sudan and Egypt and get the water to Egypt, but channel this water to other parts of South Sudan where water is needed, like in Eastern Equatoria where animals are dying, you will be able to increase the amount of land that you can farm and that you can grow, and you can build infrastructure, and within a very short time bring about a 21st century economy that, instead of relying on oil and polluting our land and destroying our society, it's built on renewable energy, is built on using the water that is now a curse into really a blessing to grow our land and let the people of the world experience the fertility of our soil. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so it's a good question. Basically, the first things are important first. We demand that there should be an election. And whether one can contest in that election or not is a function of whether there is an environment for an election to be conducted. And I have said in another show previously, Peter is relatively a young man, compared to me. I'm relatively a young man compared to others. And we are willing to wait and say, okay, those ahead of us have your space. For example, President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar, if they had done the right thing and the country is prospering, why would we be cracking our heads, talking politics? We should be busy making money, creating companies, getting rich, and having a good time, not having to worry about, public issues. But because the space for doing those things doesn't exist, we all crowd toward politics. I believe that there are so many people in South Sudan, young people, who are intelligent, brave, and can do a good job. If they have the space, maybe they will shine. Maybe when this contestation of ideas is given an opportunity, we will be able to identify more leaders. And so we don't want to take premature position and say we are declaring our candidacy for an election that doesn't exist. So I don't believe that. But if the environment is made possible, it is an individual decision. It is also an organizational decision. We are civil political activists right now. Peter doesn't have a political party. I don't have a political party. The PCCA is a social movement, and the South Sudan, Reviving South Sudan is also a social movement, a non-profit organization. And so when time comes, then you would have to create a party, and then the party now decides. And we also want to be democratic in that. The party then decides who their candidate is going to be, and there has to be an internal contest. So let us create the environment first, and then now let the individuals make decisions based on their calculation. So we want elections to be conducted in South Sudan in an environment that is conducive, in an environment that is fair and transparent, in an environment that gives everybody equal opportunity. And I agree with Peter. The time has come right now, and we are defining that moment now. These discussions that we are having are important discussions to have at this time in the country. That those who consider themselves leaders in South Sudan, who are unable to speak up in the middle of the current call of national duty, that the country is sinking down, that we should not allow South Sudan to live as a contradiction. And I can tell you that South Sudan now lives as a contradiction of its own liberation ideals. And that is extremely shameful, that we have become the very thing that we had opposed. And if we continue to tolerate this dictatorship, this authoritarian system, this oppressive system, then why did we oppose the Sudanese state? That is a contradiction. And so I admire the courage of Peter. He was among the first people to see this. Those of us who are speaking now took longer. We had always hoped that maybe change can be done internally. But we were wrong. And we had falsely believed that it is possible. It is not. And if we tolerate this system, then we are insulting the millions that died fighting for freedom, only to be suppressed and oppressed again by people wearing different colors of the same jacket. We should not. We should be clear in our minds. So if anybody is considering leadership position in South Sudan, then the time is now to speak up. The time now is to call dictatorship a dictatorship, and an authoritarian system an authoritarian system, a kleptocratic system a kleptocratic system. This is what it is. This is what we all come to realize. Those of you who still have not realized this is, we are telling you that the system we have in South Sudan is a total contradiction of our liberation ideals. And continuing to say that this system will change or this system is good is to say that, is to apologize. We should apologize to the people of Sudan and the government of Sudan that we had accused it falsely, that what they were doing was right. I don't believe what they were doing was right. And I don't believe what our own government is doing now is right. And so it is time for people to step up and call this thing by its name. And then now work toward changing it. But we are giving people a benefit of a doubt. We are giving President Salva Kiir and his colleagues a benefit of a doubt that if there are weaknesses that are there, that are inherent as a result of the long struggle, some of it can be excused. Some of it cannot be excused. And that we are giving people a window of opportunity to do the right thing and be forgiven. But dragging on too long is where it becomes tricky. And so this is the moment now. This is the time in South Sudan for people to realize that you either speak now or don't blame those who are speaking. And when things go so bad, don't complain. They will not improve. They will only get worse with time. So I want to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know it has been a while. I will wind down, and the discussion is very important. Our general public, they are participating, whether among themselves or with you guys at the same time. So there is, the comment section is getting hot. So we are taking care of that. Before I jump to different topic, I will go back to the government of national unity and current events, and also uh, things that are going on, whether within the presidency or the vice president as well. So far this week, South Sudan has been suspended by East African community because of its due arrears.
Eager.
IGAD. So what is it? So if the South Sudan cannot afford its membership from IGAD, what really can it afford, and why? Why is this happening? What's the problem? Do we have money? Just, you know, I think it is the second time IGAD have already suspended South Sudan because of its arrears.
Because it's not prioritized. Our people and our government don't prioritize it. They don't think it's important, and no one think about it. It's not just only IGAT, it's all the other international organizations that we are in. They're being suspended left and right. And it's not a lot of money, but no one want to prioritize it. They have other things that they prioritize. So it's basically a system. It basically is a symbol. It's a symptom of the bigger problem that the country is in, where there is no prioritization of how to allocate resources and focus and the attention of the government. So that is what it is. There's really nothing beyond that. And it goes on to show that that one has connection with health system, with education, with development, because government does not think it's a priority and it does not allocate resources. And they think they will get more resources from the international community, but because they have no credibility to do that, they cannot get it. So that's basically what it shows. And it's something that will continue. It's just the same way that if you reflect back in the day, the only manufacturing company that was in the country was the White Bull, the company that was making beer. But that company was allowed to go out of business because no one wanted to give it dollars. And the dollars were given to those who are going to India for treatment and those who are basically selling it in the black market. And the company then packed up and left, and it was employing over 500 South Sudanese people. So the livelihoods of those people were just turned upside down. And because the government didn't see it as a priority. So things that benefit the people of South Sudan, that show their dignity in the international community, are not seen as priorities. And as a result, they are not allocated the resources that they require so that they can serve the people of South Sudan.
Amran.
Yeah. So it is an embarrassment for a country, a new country like South Sudan, which needs these regional entities. Regional organizations are important way of legitimizing yourself as a state. It is embarrassing that we get to be suspended very so often from IGAD, from African Union, from the United Nations, even from the East African community. It is an embarrassment to all of us. It is an insult to our collective dignity as a people of South Sudan. It's not that the country is so broke that we cannot afford this. It's simply that those who are assigned to represent us in those institutions are neglected. I know we have a delegation to the IGAD. Our own man, our own person, is the ambassador of IGAD to South Sudan. So that is important. So IGAD recognized South Sudan as an important entity, and it has an ambassador in South Sudan, and that person represent the interests of IGAD in that country. And so it is those people serving in IGAD on our behalf do come to the government and report these things, but they are neglected. They are not given the priority. The priority goes to those that the state has chosen to give favors to. The East African community, for example, we have ascended to the mandate of the East African community, which has 4 objectives. The first objective, of course, is to do customs, unify customs, and the third aspect of it is to do the border, share the border, And the third, of course, is the monetary union. They want to establish one union. And the final end, of course, is to establish a federal government of the whole region. Our people are refusing. So, for example, one of the conditions is that we have to transform our customs, make it civilian, remove the military aspect of it. But those who are employed there wearing uniform are refusing to allow that to happen. And so we are not, we like to be members of those organizations for the political benefit that come with it, but we don't like to have obligations. We don't like those obligations that come with it, but we take the benefit. And so that is why I said it is an embarrassment. For example, the East African Parliament, watching our leaders, because they get paid, our MPs there, they get paid using money being contributed by other member states, and South Sudan doesn't contribute. So it doesn't work. So anyway, this goes to the whole idea of leadership failure. What are your priorities? These are recurring costs. You schedule them. They are always part of the budget. And when the time comes, before the time comes, you pay something. Even if you don't pay it all, you are struggling. You can show your goodwill by saying, okay, can you take this for now? And I'll clear the rest later. That's how we behave, even at the individual level. If you owe something, you pay in advance. So what that means is that it further tarnishes our image. That's why our diplomacy, that's why our image internationally is so bad. Because these reports, if you are an investor and you want to take your money to South Sudan and you get a report that you have been suspended from a regional organization, that is a red flag right there. Why would you want to invest your money there? So these things, they all go to eat into our reputation as a country and as a nation. And the government should begin to behave more responsibly by paying its dues. It's simple. African Union, IGAD, the East African Community, and then the United Nations. These are top priorities. Pay them. And then there are other memberships like the Great Lakes. So, and of course, the WTO, we are trying to be members of it. And when you get reports like this, they delay your approval. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much, but it is simply a decision-making issue. It's a lack of political will, as we have already mentioned. Nobody is willing to do the right thing to save the name of the country. And that is what it is, simple as that. It is not lack of money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. This week, there was one of the comment from Vice President that drove a lot of people nuts, that including myself here. Uh, he was asked about an IO as a political party or organization, and then he came into this argument where he went so forth to the point where he said, um, the peace is not implement. Well, people of South Sudan are not benefit from oil resources because of the disunity. I don't see where disunity of the people is a problem there, where part of the part of the country is not benefit. And he went and said, probably, the time have not come. If the time have come, even they are even thinking about changing the name of South Sudan. Um, it generated a lot of argument on social media and so forth. What's your comment, gentlemen? What's your take on that?
It was shocking, to be very honest, to hear that, because personally, I've not heard anything from Victoria for quite some time. He has not been talking. He has been involved. There's a lot of things that have been happening, including what happened, the breakaway of Garwijidwal and Johnson Olony, and then the inability to implement major provision of the agreement, an inability to graduate the unified forces, a lot of concern really that have to do with the implementation of the peace agreement. He has been very quiet. He has not commented on anything. And then the first time people are hearing from him, he come up with completely very nonsensical idea of changing the country, as if that is really the problem that people are dealing with now. I think it shows the disconnect that the leaders of South Sudan have to the realities that the people of South Sudan are facing. We have seen floods in Upper Nile, including his own unity state, where people are really, really affected. In fact, the media is comparing it to what happened in the Bible during the days of Noah. Yet, nothing from Riak on this. He's going to talk to us about changing the name of the country. So it just showed that the fundamental issues that people are dealing with, these leaders are unable to engage. And they divert people's attention, like the confusion that is happening now in South Sudan. When you call and you ask what time it is, people don't know what time it is because the time was changed. And they are also part of the East African community, and you're supposed to operate with the East African community and do business in conjunction. And now people are confused, and some businesses are operating on the old time and others are operating on the new Central Africa time. That was not necessary. Like the fundamental issues that people are facing is how do we stop this conflict? How do we then put the country on a democratic path so that we can get rid of you leaders who have shown that you are unable to fix the country, and put in the people who can actually fix the country, so that the South Sudanese can begin to develop themselves, to expand access to education, expand access to healthcare, and build a 21st century economy that adapts to the larger climatic and geological changes that are taking place before our eyes, and utilizing the resources that we have to empower our people and make them able to better deal with the environment that they are in. These are the issues we want to talk about. How do we unite and reconcile from the wounds of the conflict? How do we build a consensus on the constitutions? Make sure that there is term limits. Make sure that those who committed atrocities do not participate. How do we ensure hybrid court functions? How do we ensure that those who have suffered and have lost everything during this conflict are given hope and are compensated for the loss that they have incurred? There are a lot of issues that South Sudanese should be talking about. And the disunity that he speaks of, the root of it is him and President Salva. These are the main roots of this disunity. And therefore, if that is the case, then allow our people to unify. And one of the ways that you can allow them is by listening to the conclusion of the national dialogue, which basically said that you and President Salva have done enough, that going forward, you are not adding anything positive to the country. Your participation is only producing misery, is making people suffer, is making people lose hope, is elongating the awful condition that our people are subjected to, is preventing people to deal with fundamental issues that threaten not just only the current generation, but the other generation of the future, like the pollution that is happening in Upper Nile. And how now with the flood, the oil spills that has not been cleaned up and has never been cleaned up since the beginning of the oil exploitation in the country, the water now take this flood and spread it everywhere, taking it to the rivers, taking it to streams, taking it to the farmlands, so that everything is polluted and everything dies. So that now the chemicals are not just only being breathed in the air or in the soil and therefore getting into the crops from the soil, but also from the animals and the meat that people eat, from the fish, and from anything that people touch. This is a crisis, is a national emergency, and is not being addressed. The same thing with like the state collapse that we are seeing with the disintegration of authority and lawlessness in many parts of the country, underpinned by intercommunal violence, by the looting of cattle and abduction of women and children. These are fundamental issues that need to be addressed. The issue of borders being encroached on by Kenya, by Uganda, by Ethiopia, by Sudan, our land being stolen from us, land that have for which our people sacrificed their lives. These issues are not being addressed because Salva Kiir and Riek Machar have sat on the neck of the people of South Sudan, and they are preventing the people of South Sudan to even begin to address the fundamental problem that they face. They are creating problems that don't even exist, and then try to create imaginary solution. What was the problem that the change of time fixed? And what is the problem that the change of name will fix? So it shows how they are completely out of touch and how they are completely and fundamentally unfit for the next chapter that requires the people of South Sudan to undertake with vigor and with intensity.
Yeah, thank you, Peter,
Thank you,
for your comments. I think you have dealt with it. I was just reading a list of our unpaid dues. So we have 11 obligations we have not. One for EGOT. We owe EGOT just from the previous conversation, and I will come to this. We owe EGOT $8 million. We owe East African Community $27 million. We owe Health Organization $150,000. We owe UNESCO $136,000. We owe WMO, I don't know what that is. And then FAO and UN Habitat, we owe it 40,000. And then G77, that is part of WTO, 35,000. And ICRC, 15,000. And IOM, 17,000. So really, we are falling behind of our international obligations. Now, on this question of the issue of the name change, I think that those are the debates we should have. But it is not a debate that should be made by the Vice President and others. We need a political dialogue over those issues. And so if Dr. Riek wants to have a discussion on the issue of the name change, let them open up the political space by stepping aside, and we will debate this. And if he has ideas, let him put them in writing and make a proposal. And then we create a forum where we can discuss this. But as Peter said, that's not a priority right now. In fact, we are losing the country as a whole, leave alone the name. We are losing it because of mismanagement, because of misgovernance. We could lose South Sudan, and South Sudan could cease to exist. And there are many countries in the world that have ceased to exist. In the history of the world, they came to an end. For example, we used to have a country called the Soviet Union. It broke up. We used to have a lot of countries, but they no longer exist because they fundamentally failed, and they evolved and became something else. And so South Sudan is faced by that. South Sudan could disintegrate. People could kill each other in massive numbers because we have not had leadership provided. And so I think that is the less priority right now. The things that Peter mentioned, like floods, like the implementation of the peace agreement, like having an election, returning people to their homes. The IDPs are stuck in Malakal because the leaders have stoked the ethnic conflict there between the Dinka Padang and the Sholo. And therefore, there are people who have lived in squalid conditions in Malakal for the last 7-8 years. And there are people just next door in Jebel Kujur at the UN house who are not able to come out because they have no homes. Those are the issues that are urgent right now. And of course, people like Kwelagur remain detained in jail just for signing a document, a declaration of the PCCA, when the very men who are leading South Sudan now have blood of millions of people in their hands, and somehow they are not in jail. These are the issues that are urgent that we need to talk about. Maybe what Dr. Ryuk should be talking about is the fact that he's in jail in Juba. Is the fact that he's quarantined by the government in Juba. He's not able to travel to Turkega or Numili for God's sake. That's what he should be talking about. He is not able to visit these forces, the people that he recruited to join his cause. He's not able to visit them and tell them what is happening. That is the real issue. That is what is urgent here. The fact that he was arrested in a function that he initiated is what is urgent. But the name of the country can be changed. There is no crime in that. But it can only be done by legitimate power. Those with legitimate power through elections. A debate should be had, and then it has to be taken to Parliament. Parliament should debate it. A Parliament that is elected, a constituency-based Parliament, and then it is passed as a law, taken to President. You cannot have it by. You cannot have such a debate by a government that came through an agreement that is not working. And so that is just a misprioritization. There are things that we should be talking about right now, such as those who are dying with as a result of floods, and people who are dying as a result of government in Pibor and Angle area, as well as in Tumbura. Those are the things that are urgent. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, I will move to the unity of people of South Sudan, uh, because I was during the crisis from 2012 or 2013 to the current moment. There has been naming of the SPLM and so forth. Everybody wanted to stay on SPLM, and I was like, is it the naming that's a problem, or so it was kind of this issue where uh, South Sudan name has nothing to do with our current issues at all, and it shouldn't even be something that has to be discussed. But I will put it that now the next is the unity of our people. Um, our people are divided so into many groups. They are divided into regions politically. They are divided into tribe politically. They are divided into uh, sub tribe, clan, and so forth. There is this book that was written by one of the Canadian, and this book have generated a lot of discussion because our people sometimes they like to hide themselves. They move from social media because I said here, well, they move from Facebook open its space and went to another closed social media called Clubhouse, where it's only audio discussion. Nobody, I guess people always afraid they don't want their face to be seen. There it create a lot of hate and conversation about the unity of South Sudan. Really, what do you gentlemen see as a way forward as and did you guys read the book and what do you guys think about it?
Well, let me jump in and say that any discussion about unity is always good because it's important for people to discuss what divides them. And when that is discussed, then it's no longer a source of division. So any kind of discussion should be encouraged. And we should approach this with like soberness, knowing that the people we are talking with, they are our people. And we have the same destiny with them. And they deserve our respect to listen to their views and reflect on what they are saying, and allowing their words to have impact in us and what we think, especially if it is logical and backed up by evidence. So that one, I encourage those conversations. But at the end of the day, real unity doesn't come from words. It comes from action and how people feel that they are treated with the same kind of equality that others are treated. Because if some are treated better than others, and even if you profess and talk about, oh, I want unity, there will be no unity. And we know that because we hear our leaders all the time talking. It's like the prayer of a hyena, where he prays that he has never touched anything, and therefore God should save his child. Yeah? And everybody, and he knows himself that he has been eating a lot of things and committing a lot of crimes. This is what has been happening. So there is lack of self-reflection. But people of South Sudan should be encouraged. And we should also know that this is not something we just leave to our leaders. Because when we sit back and leave everything to them, we are abandoning our own power and our own agency to change things for the better. But when we participate and we talk with our neighbors, with our friends, with our cousins, and we discuss with them, we exchange ideas, we challenge each other's perspective, we create an environment that makes it possible for us to build trust and to build a shared sense of oneness. And this is something we have to take. And I think even all of us who are now talking about political issues affecting the country, we also need to come together. And it's one of the things that I like to see in the next coming month, to have a forum where we will be discussing issues of South Sudan. How do we unite our people and build a united front to address the fundamental issues we face, and have these kinds of conversations, not just only with people like you, Peter, but with everybody, and to ensure that our people participate. They are on Facebook. A lot of them are going live and having conversation. This is great. We should encourage our people to talk. And during talk, there are things that you hear that you may not like. And it's important to allow those who are saying these things to have their say, because that's what allow us to then build consensus and how we move forward. We must be willing to hear what we are not willing to hear. And even though it is painful, it challenges us, it's make us emotional, we have to build the kind of tolerance that is required so that such conversation can happen. And sometimes there will be people that will come with bigotry and with hate. And maybe they hate you because of who you are, or simply because of jealousy. There was also issues of envy and all of these other things. Or even here in the US, for example, and we see it in other parts where there is like racism and things like that. And just someone just doesn't like you, or in our context, tribalism. But we know that most majority of our people are not like that. They are very reasonable, accommodating people that like to participate in a civilized society that empowers its citizen to engage together fully, get to know each other fully, and listen to one another in how they make up their mind and how they think about their surrounding and the issues that they're engaging with. So I encourage this, and it should happen in all kinds of forums. And I think if forums like what we have online are great, because in our country, there is no that space where people can actually talk. And people have been arrested. We just mentioned Kwelagwer and others who are currently under bars. And it's because of the exercising the right to free speech. That's why they are being detained. So we should encourage people to talk at tea places, in the churches, everywhere, to discuss how can we do better. And how can we do better as citizens? Because it's not even enough to just blame our leaders. We should also think about how can we exercise our citizenship better, become better people, become people that can take this country to another level, people that are dependable, people who are good neighbors, who are good friends, who are good Christians, who care about others. So we should always having that conversation and reflect on that. And if we do that, we will be able to build the kind of unity we are talking about.
Right. Thank you. Yes. So national unity is, as by definition, is a unity of a nation. That means we are talking about people, not the geography. And people are united by shared goals, shared objectives, shared spirit. And so national unity can be broken, and it can also be cultivated. Over the last 10 years, or since 2013, we have been tearing our country apart because of the political upheavals that we have seen. And we are competing for political space in the new country that we have created. And when you are creating a new country, leadership matters. Because without the leadership, the unity becomes conflict. Because by definition, human interactions are bound to have conflicts. Because we are pulled together by our shared interest of doing better. And we only do better when we are working with others. But we also get in conflict when we work with others whose values and interests are in conflict with our own. And so that is where leadership is needed to mitigate those conflicts. That's where rules and the rule of law and justice and equality is needed in order to keep everybody feeling that they are part and they are benefiting from the whole. However, what we have seen over the last 10 years, or let's say since 2013, the last 8 years, has been tearing apart of those. Communities have been set up against one another. Big communities, especially the Dinka and the Nuer, have threatened the rest of the country. Everybody, the smaller groups feel that they could be decimated, they could be killed or wiped out by the large groups because they control power and they control the might of the military. And so there has been despair in the country. Everybody feel insecure that their land could be taken, that their lives could be taken, their property could be taken, because there is no leadership. The state, which was set up to serve, to protect all of us, has turned against us. And the whole function of a state is to protect all of us, to assurance that in working together as a nation, we all have protection, that we all have the opportunity to be part of that nation. And so what has aggravated the divisions among people is the inability of South Sudan government to dispense justice. And it is the government of South Sudan and the armed groups using violent means and force to and exert unnecessary suffering on the people. This is what has created this conflict. We have seen this in Malakal, where ethnic tensions have been stoked so high between the Dinka and the Nuer and the Sholo. People who have lived together and they actually speak each other's language. Very hard to distinguish who is a Nuer, who is a Sholo, and who is a Dinka, unless they tell you. But their differences were exaggerated and exacerbated to the point that they see each other now as enemies. And they don't trust each other anymore. And when there is no trust, it is hard to have unity. Likewise, we have seen this in Western Baragazal, where the Dinkas and the Pertit and the Luo have their relationship messed up, even if they have lived for hundreds of years together. And even among the Dinkas themselves in Rumbek, we have seen this. We have seen this in Warap, and we have also seen this among the Nuers in the Unity State. People have turned on each other. Why? Because the state is unjust. It gives power to people who don't deserve it, who then misuse that power to suppress others. And that is where dissatisfaction comes in. So I think the fundamental issue here at hand is the question of existential question of South Sudan as a nation. Can we live together? Yes, we can. What then do we need to do this? We need a just system, a just democratic system that gives us equal opportunities, where we don't have to rely on brute force to make our space in a political context. This is the fundamental issue. And so it is for the majority, the Dinka and the Nuer, to realize that because of their sheer numbers and because they have military power and because they have political power now, everybody else feels threatened. This is a fact. It cannot be denied. And whether people are doing it intentionally or not, it is there. People feel threatened. People feel that they are being squeezed. And one way to resist that is to speak bad against the other group so that you can consolidate. This is what has been happening. So the Dinkas have to pull themselves together so that they can protect themselves against others. The Nuer have to do the same. The smaller ethnic communities in Equatoria have to do the same. The Luos have to do the same. And that is exactly the definition of political failure. That is the leadership failure. That's what we are talking about. We are not talking about failure out of blue. We are talking about failure of leadership to provide the unifying the things that unite us. And so I think when we talk about the unity of South Sudan, and I agree with Peter, there is one that is an obligation of state and leadership, national leadership. But there is one that must reflect individual. I must act in a manner that makes others feel safe around me, that makes them want to be part of me as an individual. So there is an individual obligation. Every citizen has an obligation to behave in a manner that makes their fellow citizens feel welcome, feel wanted, feel part of this broader citizenry of South Sudan. I think this is the fundamental issue. So if we were to get back to the fundamentals of national unity, what we are saying is the way to do it. Let those who have created the divisions, let them leave the political scene. And then let us go back on the drawing board and have a new political pact through dialogue, through political dialogue. Let us reconstruct a new national army that doesn't scare others, but we feel comfortable around. And I can tell you, it is not that one group is larger in the army than the other. It is what the army does. It is scary to others. And so even if they were to come from one village and their interest is to protect the interests of all the people of South Sudan, regardless of where they come from, they will be celebrated. And so this is where the fundamental, this is where we need to start. And once you have that political consensus restored, you need political consensus in order to restore some degree of trust. Then we have to work as individuals, as political parties, as churches, as communities, as schools to pull this country together. This is the only way out of it. And we can begin this even on this social media platform. where we, instead of bashing each other always, and I have seen this, people saying, this group is terrible, this other group is, why do we do that? We are tearing our country apart. Why don't we deal with individuals and their actions instead of having this generalization that say so and so, Abraham Awolich is from this community and he's bad, so therefore that community is bad. Let us seize all of that. Let us look at the source of the problem. The source of the problem is misgovernance. We were pulled together in 2011 during the referendum. We voted 98%. That is the definition of a nation. That was unanimous. And we were there waiting to be led. All of us, 100% of us were there to be led. But nobody showed up to lead us. The people who showed up are people who came to divide us and drove wedge among us. That's why we are in this situation. We have no bad intentions toward one another. But the state has failed us because otherwise, if we didn't need a state, we would not have had it. We need a state. We need a state to keep us together. We need a state to give us service, to unite us, to lead us. That's what a state is for. Otherwise, we wouldn't need it. We could just break up and be tribes, be communities. But we need a shared security. We need a collective security. That's why we need a state. And so, in my view, the one way to restore national unity is for those of us who are informed and who are active in the social media to begin to behave in a manner that reflects national unity, to begin to say things that pull us closer to one another, and to point fingers to where the failure is, which is the leadership failure, is what brought all these things here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that being said, I am going to wrap up. It's exactly 3 hours, which I was not expecting, and the discussion is fruitful, and our gent public like it. Um, just maybe 1 second or so. What do you, because what have been the discussion that has been generating on that clubhouse is particularly pointing fingers at Dinka, uh, as a Dinka's gentleman, this young guy that have a different vision of how South Sudan need to be run. What do you guys tell those people? Because it's just it's just that would be my last question for the night, and after that I would love to hear your last word. So before I do that, if you guys can make maybe a 30 second or so on that note.
Peter, you unmute.
Thank you for giving us the chance to clarify that. You know, a lot of the people who are frustrated because of the failures of the South Sudanese leaders tend to blame people or the Dinka people for those failures. And that is misplaced. Just because Salva Kiir comes from Dinka, it doesn't mean that the Dinka people are responsible for his failures. And the same thing with Riek Machar or any other leader. Those are his individual failures. And they have nothing to do with the tribes. And Dinka as a people have not done anything to mess South Sudan up, just like any other tribe. But there are individuals who have messed up South Sudan, whether they have killed people or they have taken resources or anything of that sort. Those are individuals, they are not tribes. So those people are frustrated and they are directing their frustration at the wrong thing. Because in South Sudan, if you mention Salva Kiir and criticize him, national security will come in and detain you and arrest you. But if you talk about Dinka and you say all the rubbish you want about Dinka, no one is even going to touch you. And that is misplaced because Dinka is being blamed here for actions of individuals whose behavior and action do not even benefit the Dinka people. I remember a few months before I was detained, I was in Warab State, and I traveled all the way to where our president comes from. And it would be shocking to tell you how those people are suffering. They are in extreme poverty. They have no water. People have to walk distance to go and get water. And now many South Sudanese, even within Dinka, they say people of Awan or people of Gogrial are the beneficiaries. And that is not true. There may be individuals within those communities, and it's not those communities alone. Every community in South Sudan, in everybody have people that are part of this mess. And therefore, we cannot generalize and blame innocent people who just want the same thing that you want. They want freedom. They want a chance to be treated equally. So those discussions are misdirected. And those people need to understand that South Sudan is a country where all the tribes of South Sudan belong, starting from Dinka to the smallest tribe. And instead of creating tribal animosity, we should have the courage to really call the things for what they are and not defend or accuse people based on their tribes or their gender or whatever other creed. Let's focus on action and the character of the people. Let's focus on that because that is what matters in the end. So I think those discussions are, in the end, increasing bigotry and making people defensive. And they are not helping our country to unify because that country needs all of us. We all belong in it. And there is no way that any one of us would be missing from it, regardless of whatever hate. So that is not helpful. What is helpful is how do we build unity and how do we begin to address the concern that is driving the frustrations of these people. And that requires us to address the fundamental problem of leadership crisis in the country so that then we have the space to begin unifying ourselves and beginning to do the kind of things that will consolidate that unity and make it really genuine.
Right. Thank you, Peter, for your comments. I think, yeah, so I believe that, like Peter, that there are no ethnic or tribal decision-making mechanisms that exist in South Sudan that can be directly blamed for what is happening. For example, there is no parliament where the Dinka people would sit and make collective decisions. There is no parliament for the Toposas to make decisions. What is there are individuals who use the ethnic cards as tokens for negotiating themselves into power. But even when they are in power, they don't give back to their communities. They don't even visit their communities, leave alone giving them anything. And so it is actually part of propagating ethnic hatred and tearing apart of a country when we call ethnic names, when we go out there and say such and such group is bad. There is no justification for that. For example, in Jonglei, the Murle people and the Nuers and the Dinkas, they are fighting. Over what? There are political issues there that must be considered. There are there are social issues there are economic issues there. But whose responsibility is it to prevent those conflicts? Just like the country where Peter and I are now, where we presently are in the United States, there were reports of some people ganging up and then they go to the store and rob people. Now, those are individuals. So the law will deal with them according to their actions. But they will not say they come from this community or they come from that village. They will be treated as individuals having committed a crime. So the function of a state is to stop people who are committing crimes. Crimes will always be committed, whether by individuals or by groups. So there must be somebody to stop that. And so this is where we are in South Sudan. The communities, I have participated in the national dialogue, and the communities met together and they talked. And the conclusion they reached was that we have no issues among ourselves. Everything that is setting us against one another is part of a broader political power struggle. This is the truth about what is going on in South Sudan. And so we do ourselves a disservice as citizens when we turn around and blame each other. Of course, we can blame each other if we act irresponsibly. We should hold each other accountable. I should be held accountable if I act irresponsibly. If I'm in a position of influence and I act irresponsibly, I should be held accountable. But as I'm talking now, even my wife, the children that I have given birth to, and my brothers and sisters, people in my village, I'm sitting here in in the United States and talking. Now, if you are going to say that what I'm saying, if you don't like it, that it came from my community, then you have a problem. It is my personal opinion. I have not consulted with anyone. As well, when President Salva Kiir Mayadi decided to be a dictator and to die in power, he did not actually go out there in the villages and consulted the Dinka people. He consulted his own security agents, people in his party, people in his parliament. All of those people, they are the ones that are doing this for him. And so we should condemn anyone who try to propagate ethnic bigotry and ethnic divisions. That is not acceptable. The people that are blamed are people who have been given the responsibility to keep this country united, and they have not done it, so they have divided it. Those are the people that should be held responsible. Not mere citizens who are scraping for their own lives every day. The cattle herders, they only want to make sure that they get milk from their cows and that their cows are able to graze, period. And whoever provides the opportunity to vaccinate their cows, they wouldn't mind whether it's coming from Europe or from Turkana district or from anywhere in Africa, they would take it as a service. So those are tools that the regime uses to divide us when we begin to turn on each other and blame each other for what has gone wrong, when truly those who are responsible are sitting there and we are watching them. Thank you very much.
All right. With that being said, it has been a fruitful conversation, and I hope we will continue doing this regardless of threat or obstacle. I am sure if I'm not going to be there, I'm sure someone else here on this platform will be able to invite you guys back if they want to. Um, um, Before I make that, I have to make a quick question. Comment from the viewer. Uh, Gayalo, I am watching all the comments. Whether it is a comment or a question, um, I'm reading them. Uh, I pick out what I felt like was a fair question enough, but questions that are narrowed down to individual, they are not part of my conversation here, and that's fine. And always comment to a distraction to a conversation. I might read out a comment or whatever. It might distract the my panel here and might take us to different direction. But yeah, I'm sorry if I'm disservice my audience. So, gentlemen, this wrap up my conversation with you guys. So, I want you guys to at least, give me a minute or two for your last word about the whole conversation. What is the way forward? Um,
Peter, you want to go?
um,
Welcome, Abraham. You can come if you are ready.
Okay. All right. So, well, the last comment I want to make is that, and this is to the audience and the people of South Sudan in general. We are the authors of South Sudan. We all co-founded South Sudan, and we have stakes in South Sudan, all of us. And we know that South Sudan has not been fair to us, all of us. We know that South Sudan has not been the mother that we want it to be. It has been not been able to give us the life that we desire and that we need. But this is not God's plan. This is human action. There are people who are sitting in Juba in power who are preventing South Sudan from the country that would be flowing with honey and milk, as the Bible says. And we have been given the power when we voted in a referendum in 2011 by 98.83%. We basically authored the future of South Sudan together. And that power which we use, the same power we use to get our independence as a result of vote, is basically what we are asking for. We are simply saying we want that power back so that we can redirect our country in another direction. We used that power in 2011 to break away from Sudan. So you imagine that power. If you have a power to break away from another country, you have the same power to change leadership. You have the same power to redirect South Sudan from misery, from divisions, from failure, from bankruptcy, from killing, to a country that everyone would want to plug into. You have seen Africans, making very terrible journeys to Europe to try to seek better life. South Sudan could be one of those countries where people will be trekking from the north of Africa, from the southern tip of Africa, from the western part of Africa, or to come to South Sudan to seek better life. It is possible. But to do that, we have to rise. We have to rise up to defend our country. We have to get our power back as citizens. The power to vote people into office. The power to tell our army what they should be doing for us. The power to tell our government that we need to be treated equal. It doesn't matter whether we come from an ethnic group that is 20 people or we come from an ethnic group that is 20 million people. We should be treated equal. That's all we want. That's what we are advocating for. We are not a sellout. We are not selling South Sudan to anyone. We are not asking UN to take over South Sudan. We are not asking the United States to colonize South Sudan or any country. We simply want our people to be given their power to determine who their leaders should be, what their aspirations are, and what their money should be spent on. That is all we are asking for. And so we should not be vilified. We are not the problem here. We are not the problem of South Sudan. The problem of South Sudan is your silence. Those of you who are silenced. The problem of South Sudan is the problem of those who are blaming those who are speaking out against the evils of the state. The problem of South Sudan are leaders who have failed to lead. We wouldn't be talking here if they were leading. So this is where the issue is. So we are asking people to rise up, speak their minds, demand their right, restore their power, sovereign power, and change the direction of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me say, Peter Kench, first of all, I want to thank you. I'm greatly honored to appear on this program today. And it has been a privilege to share this platform with my brother, Abraham Awolich, and to have this conversation with our people. And I want to thank our people who are watching. I know we have taken a lot of your time, but we appreciate your concern and your commitment to be engaged in the discourses that are affecting our country and its future. So I thank you, and I really appreciate the fact that you are willing to engage. Many of you have made comments. We have been reading those comments. There's no such a thing as a bad comment. We welcome all of them, and we encourage you to continue to be engaged and to let's challenge each other. Let's have a conversation, but let's challenge each other based on ideas. Let's challenge each other so that we can build a consensus. You see, our country came because our people made sacrifice, including ourselves. We made it happen with the support of people around the world who were inspired by our righteous struggle. So we know that we have this power, and particularly the young people of South Sudan. They need to understand that every generation is faced by enormous challenge. Us in Dinka, we have a ritual where we have different generations. And each generation always think about its legacy. What is it going to leave behind? What is it that will define it? And we have seen with the case of South Sudan, what was the contribution of the generation of Anyanya 1? We have seen the contribution of the generation of Addis Ababa period. We have seen the contribution of the generation of the SPLM liberation struggle, of which many of us also participated in many ways. But the thing is, those works were led by those generation. Those particular generation at the time that took the leadership were the one around which the people of South Sudan organized so that they can propel forward. The people struggled and make sure it culminated in a success, which it did. But now is our time. Now is our turn to show what our generation can do. We can be the generation around which the people of South Sudan organize to begin to address the fundamental problem that we face, to begin to address the issues of flood and climate change, to begin to make sure our land is a land in which freedom reigns. We can make sure that our country is prosperous. We can make sure that this country, its resources are used to benefit its people. This is our struggle. It is our struggle to build this state, to lay the foundation for it. And we cannot shy away from it. We cannot shy away from that task because it is difficult, or it requires sacrifice, or it is dangerous. Of course, what makes it worthy is because it is dangerous, and that because it is difficult. Because if it was easy, others would have done it. Others would have done it. But because it is difficult, because it is dangerous, it requires our commitment and our effort day and night. We have to do it. We cannot shrink from it. So I invite all the young people of South Sudan and all the people of South Sudan that let's join hands. Let's rescue our country. Let's do it. And if we commit ourselves and we are willing to exert the effort, we can turn our country into whatever we want it to be. We can realize all the promises that the Lord Almighty has made to our people. So let's go forward, knowing that we have to engage, we have to work together. Let's build consensus. Let's build platform to have our voices heard, and let's continue, knowing that the promises of the Lord Almighty to our people and to our land must be realized by our efforts. Thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you.
Thank you, Dr. Biar. Thank you, Mr. Awolich. It was my pleasure and great honor to have you guys. I have to apologize to my audience that I failed to bring Dr. Dr. Jok
Sure.
Madut and Mr. Rajab Mohandis. Rajab, his problem is a network problem. I will do the best I can to bring him on his own time when I have a chance. The same to Dr.
Joke.
Dr. Jok. Awarded.
Yes.
Um, so, with that being said, it is a great honor And this is what we went as a source. Give me 1 second. Okay. Awolich, unmute yourself, Madut.
Yes, good. Yeah,
Uh,
so the show is come to an end, right?
yeah. No, it's not in.
Oh, okay.
It's still live. Uh, you have a second to say hello to my audience and my guests before I end up.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, our guests, our special guests, Dr. Biar, Ajak, and Dr. Abraham Awolich. Welcome to Lagos State Media. We're happy to host you this evening. And all the viewers who are watching Lagos State Media, thank you so much for being a part of our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham, for hosting us. We are happy, and we want the Lake State Media to continue to do its work and to have a big office in South Sudan, in Juba, and anywhere it desires. This is the development that we need in our country. And Brother Peter Biar, thank you very much. I'm so happy to share this space with you. The journey begins now, the journey of uniting our people and the journey of working together to realize the country that we desire. Thank you very much for your effort and for your courage and your determination to fight on. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you, Madid Majak, for the invitation, for hosting us, and thank you, Peter King, for such a wonderful conversation. We have really enjoyed it, and we look forward to engaging in it. This is what we have committed ourselves to, so we are happy to appear anytime and talk with our people and see how we can learn together and work together in such a noble task of freeing our people and making sure that we realize that nation that we all suffered for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to continuation.
Thank you.
And also I would also like to extend this invitation to government of South Sudan. If you are willing, I know several times there are people that we thought they will have a good idea to respond to this kind of conversation. They turn it down. If you turn it down, don't blame us. We are open to any opinion. This is how we engage our people, and this is the conversation that we want to continue. With that being said, have a wonderful wherever you are. Whether you are in Juba, probably is night. Have a wonderful night, morning in Australia, and good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for being part of the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Okay.
It's your boy Young I give him that thing. Pancho legs stand, Panchita America. Panchita dwell, Banaban. Pancho legs stand, Panchita America. Panchita dwell, Banaban. Walk on the lake, Kankara water no watching. Oga level leg, Juir, Pau, Garay lake. Panda with Yay, Panchita America. Panya dwell, Vano. Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda Juir, what you Panchita America, Panchita dwell, Panapan Pancha legs stand.
What is?
What